There was a math class going on in the classroom. The young teacher, Emily Johnson, was explaining to the older students how to solve an equation with two variables. The children listened attentively, asked some questions, took notes. They liked the teacher very much. She could explain everything simply and clearly. Even the most backward pupils tried to solve the task. The head teacher often praised Emily. "With your abilities, you should be teaching at a university, not at school. Rumor has it you can multiply even multi-digit numbers in your mind. I admire you. And to get along with today's youth is a rare case. Usually kids can't stand math. And there's even a waiting list for your elective." The girl was very pleased with such warm words. She replied, "It's just that I really love numbers. I've loved solving complex examples since I was a child. My father urged me to go to the University of Economics, but I am somehow closer to working with children. You feel great satisfaction when a child understands and does well in the program. Then you don't need tutors." Everyone in the team was surprised. How come? The daughter of a bank director came to work as a teacher in an ordinary school. After all, the salary here is not prestigious. And Emily did not stand out in any way. She chose high quality, but not flashy clothes of pastel colors, light makeup, shoes, slippers. Emily had another passion, swimming. She regularly went to the pool and practiced this sport in her youth. Even received awards, participated in competitions. She herself didn't realize where it came from. Just one day in childhood, her mother took her to the pool to correct her posture and improve her health. Surprisingly, but in the water, Emily was completely liberated. All the anxiety and bad moods went away. And after such a training, there was an incredible charge of vigor and positivity. One saddened the girl, no personal life. Because of this, she had strained relations with her father. He dreamed of marrying her to a man from his circle and began to take her to Jake Wilson. He was a well-established businessman, solidly established and friends with Emily's father. Of course, Jake didn't mind being related to the bank director, and he liked Emily. She was athletic, slender. The way she looks, her long hair and searing brown eyes, they turned me on, he thought. He was not used to rejection. Usually the girls themselves hung around his neck, but not Emily. She didn't like Jake at all, the arrogant, narcissistic one. All he did was brag about his accomplishments. He was all about money. And the girl dreamed of true, sincere love, to live soul to soul, with the same interests. Her father insisted. Emily stubbornly resisted, and then even quarreled with the groom, and moved out of her father in a separate apartment, which he bought for her in advance. Dad took offense. For some time they did not even communicate, but after a while they made up. However, that warmth and trust between them was no longer there. Dad couldn't accept her choice. "But why kill yourself at school for a pittance when you can make a career in my bank? Especially since I see such potential and ability in you," he said. That day there was no sign of trouble. Emily was teaching her last class. With a few minutes to go before the bell rang, her cell phone rang. She saw her father's picture on the screen and was surprised. He was usually busy during the day and didn't bother her. Realizing that something serious had happened, she picked up the phone. At the other end of the line, her father was wheezing. "Daughter, I feel bad. I'm dying. Come quickly." Emily turned pale as chalk, asked the boys to sit quietly until the call, and drove home. She raced toward the mansion, breaking all the rules of the road. Everything inside her was tight. She couldn't breathe. A premonition of trouble consumed her. When she arrived at the house, a medical team was already there. They tried to pump out the father, gave him artificial respiration, but it was too late. The father was dead. The girl couldn't believe it. "Daddy, sweetie, get up, open your eyes. No, don't die. I won't let you go. Why are you looking at me like that? Do something," she sobbed, hugging her father's body. The teachers were dragged away from the corpse. Emily was heavily sedated, and she fell into a heavy, viscous sleep, more like oblivion, and she dreamt of her father and mother. They were holding hands and walking away, waving at her, and she kept running after them and couldn't catch up. And then there was the funeral, a beautifully lacquered coffin, crowds of expensively dressed people, condolences. Her stepmother had been careful to feign grief, but Emily knew it. Ashley was faking it. When her father had brought her into the house 3 years ago, just a year after her mother's death, the girl had thought it wasn't serious. The girl was absolutely 20 years younger than him, model-like in appearance. She was smiling at Ashley, acting all boyish around her dad, trying to please him. "Daddy, why did you bring that mop over here?" Emily asked her father. "She's old enough to be your daughter. Don't you realize that she's only with you for money and a good life? How could you betray your mother's memory?" But John replied sharply and harshly, "I loved Kim very much, We were soulmates all our lives. It's been a year since she died, and I've been walking around dead myself. Ashley was able to breathe life into me. She loves me. Embrace that. You're not a kid anymore, so you should understand. I'm not an old man yet. I can't be alone all the time. Don't make me sad, my daughter. Try to be friends with her. I'd like that very much. Ashley's really messing with my father's head. They got married. And now she's gone from being a smart, innocent-looking girl to a bitch. She thinks she's the boss, bossing around or running the house, living the high life and spending her father's money left and right. That's also one of the reasons why Emily eventually moved into her own apartment. She couldn't stand to see Ashley making her father eat nothing but lettuce and juice, buying him ridiculous things that were not age-appropriate. And he tried to dress himself, even going to the gym, even though he was strictly forbidden to put any strain on his body. Dad had a long history of heart problems. From the outside, it all looked comical, but Dad didn't seem to want to hear or notice anything. He could not breathe on his new family and obeyed her in everything. And recently, while visiting her father, Emily saw some pills on a shelf in the kitchen. Dad drank them every day. Moreover, the label was in Chinese and there were no instructions at all. Her daughter became alarmed. "What is it, Dad?" The father laughed and replied, "It's vitamins, my daughter. Familiar spouses from the Celestial Empire brought, based on algae and something else. They help you stay young and strong. Ashley takes such good care of me. It's true. They make me feel so good. I run around like a young man. I don't get tired. I could stay awake 24 hours a day and nothing." Emily hadn't noticed it at the time, but now that her father had died so suddenly, she looked for the jar, but it was no longer there. Her stepmother just shrugged and excused herself. "Don't be angry, Emily, it's not my fault. It's hard on all of us. And I took those vitamins myself. Where are they going?" "I don't know. Maybe they ran out. It's just so sad. Your dad died and my beloved husband. We should be holding on, not fighting." But Emily sensed there was something wrong, but she couldn't prove it. After her father died, the notary read the will, and Emily had a shock. Her father bequeathed her the bank, and now she must take possession and manage it. He also left her an apartment, a car and accounts with money. And stepmother got a mansion, a car and a summer house in the suburbs. And John surprised me with a surprise. Ashley grinned bitterly. "What am I going to live on now?" I wondered. "Actually, I have a degree in economics. Maybe I could help you out." "Emily, you can't do it. You'll ruin your father's business." But the thought of having to put up with Ashley every day shook her, so she answered sharply. "Did you not hear well in the will? Or should I say it again? It's none of your business whether I can handle it or not. What a great economist, never worked a day. I hope we never cross paths again. You never liked Dad, you lived off him. So now you're gonna have to find a job, or a new rich businessman. Have a nice day." Emily had no time to grieve. She had to pay off her job and get into her father's business. She was met at the bank, to put it mildly, not kindly. Squinting at her, gossiping behind her back. All they could hear in the smoking room was, "We're all dead without Frederick Johnson. What can this teacher know about banking? She's a joke. Sitting there, smart, doing reports and poring over papers. That probably doesn't know a thing about it herself." The competitors were eavesdropping too. They were just waiting for Emily to make a big mistake to take away the bank. At first it seemed to the girl that she would never figure it all out, and she had no one to turn to for help. She didn't realize who was her friend and who was her enemy, who could be trusted and who couldn't. The executives were hovering like vultures, all urging Emily to sell up, to put the bank up for auction. "Emily Johnson, realize that business is not a woman's business," Gerald Peterson whispered. "It's such a burden. The stresses, the inspections. Why do you need it? You're young and beautiful. You have your whole life ahead of you. Sell the bank and live comfortably for years. Sooner or later, it's all going to end that way anyway." Emily didn't give up. "Go to work, Gerald Peterson. I don't need your advice. I thought you were friends with Dad. You were his right-hand man. So why rock an already shaky boat? You have to understand, this is a very difficult time. Dad's death was so sudden. It's really hard for me to concentrate on things for now. But believe me, I'll do whatever it takes to get us through this. And I'm definitely not selling anything. You don't like working under me? I don't keep anyone. The manager can leave right away." "Why are you so angry, Emily Johnson? We've all misunderstood. I didn't mean to offend you. I apologize. Perhaps I expressed myself inappropriately. I have the utmost respect for Frederick Johnson, and I will continue to do my job. I'd just like a bonus for my efforts. You know, I've got twice as much work to do, but until I do, I've got a lot on my plate. I assure you that you can rely on me completely. If anything, I will always help." One day Emily was sorting out the bonus system, distributing it to the staff, going through reports and muttering to herself, "Emily, pull yourself together. You're not a cook after all, but a mathematician. Come on, let's go over it all again. What am I missing here?" Lucy was just cleaning her office. She was diligently wiping down the shelves and desk, watering the flowers, and then she said quietly, "I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have something very important to tell you." "I don't believe a word Gerald Peterson says. He's a very slippery man, duplicitous. After your father died, some important people came to his bank. I overheard them talking. They have a plan to ruin the bank as quickly as possible and let it go under the hammer for nothing, to rebuy it and appropriate it for themselves. I realize, Lucy, I'm minding my own business, but Frederick Johnson was a wonderful, fair, honest man, and you're going through a hard enough time as it is. I just wanted to warn you." Emily was taken aback and replied, "You're right, Lucy, I am really having a hard time, but I won't give up. I'm not going to let my father's baby be ruined. I'm trying to get things sorted out. But I guess today's not my day. I can't find where the mistake is, can I?" Lucy glanced cautiously at the report out of curiosity, and again as timidly said, "It's right there in the third column from the bottom, count it again." Emily laughed, thinking, what could a cleaning lady possibly know about reports, but still she counted and corrected one entry, and it all added up. The girl approached the cleaning lady and said, "Thank you, you're right. That's what a fresh set of eyes means. But let me ask you, why are you carrying a rag when you could get a better job? Honestly, I don't get it." Lucy sighed and replied, "I could. But I have 3 small children in my arms and my husband died recently. You can't take an office job like this before. And who would hire me with 3 kids? And this is a great schedule. I can manage until lunchtime, and then I can pick them up from school. I bring them in, feed them, and then I'm back here again. We all leave before closing time. That's how I live. And by profession I am an accountant, but life has taken a different course. It happens. I sympathize with you. It must be hard to raise 3 kids on your own. Thanks for the warning. Tell me, Lucy, can I ask you for help sometimes? I can see I can trust you. I can get lost sometimes. I don't have anyone to consult." The woman was pleased. "Of course. I'm at your disposal at any time. That's okay. I hope you can manage. I like working here. Wouldn't want to change places again. Anything I can do to help." Emily began to notice strange behavior from the manager. First, he brought in an alleged bailiff and tried to open a safe deposit box with him without the client's knowledge, even though it was against the rules. Emily refused and wondered. Then the unimaginable began. Some safe deposit box owners claimed that someone had tried to open their box. Obviously, it didn't work, because the bank has a 2-key system. A safe deposit box can only be opened if the owner's key and the bank employee's key are inserted at the same time. The woman did not understand who was trying to gain access to other people's safe deposit boxes and why. She understood perfectly well that it was one of the employees. She decided to watch the footage from the cameras. And she got an unpleasant surprise. It was on the days of the incidents that the footage was corrupted. She berated security. She wanted to fire them for their negligence, and she called Lucy in. "I don't know what to do. If I don't find the bad guy, the customers will stop trusting us. And the main thing is, nothing seems to be missing. But then why someone is methodically trying to open the boxes one by one?" Lucy timidly suggested. "Don't laugh. Emily, I was watching a detective show on TV the other day. It was something like that. Only they were trying to find the thief. They left the cash register open and installed a camera. That's how they found out who had stolen a large sum of money. The thief couldn't resist and gave himself away. He was looking for an easy score." Emily's cheerful. "That's an idea. Thanks, Lucy. I'll do that." Emily installed a hidden camera in the vault and deliberately left one of the boxes open, taking the risk. There was no other way out anyway. It was her late father's safe deposit box. Of course she had access to it. First she looked at what was there herself, some old bonds, receipts for large purchases, and unsigned videotapes. Why her father kept it, she had no idea, and there was no need to find out. She was sure the thief wouldn't get his hands on this stuff, but she'd see who it was, so she waited. No one came in for a couple days, and then the following happened. Gerald Peterson, a couple hours before the end of the workday, cautiously entered the vault carefully inspected the boxes, and noticing an open one, began to pull out its contents. Taking only the videotape with him, he quickly exited, and half an hour later excused himself for personal business. He was very nervous. Emily wanted to tell him she knew everything, but she thought better of it. She had to figure out how this was going to end. She immediately asked Lucy, "Please help me follow Gerald Peterson. It's very important," just discreetly. "I don't want you to get in trouble." The cleaning lady nodded. "Of course, Emily, I'll do everything. Don't worry. People like our manager don't see people like me, so there's nothing to worry about." "Well, I'll run and tell you all about it later." Emily had barely worked, and then Lucy came to see her that evening. She was trying to catch her breath. "I've heard the news. Okay, here we go. First, Gerald Peterson was running around town like a madman. I could barely keep up. He went into an old vintage car dealership, so I followed. He asked for a video player so he could watch the tape. I'm sorry I didn't dare go near it. I just pretended to pick out records. He didn't watch the tape, but he immediately turned pale as death, took out the tape and rushed home. I guess he left it there. Then he went to a restaurant and met the same men who had come to see him earlier. They talked about something for a long time. He handed them some papers. Checked to see if anything's missing. Emily, of course, wasn't allowed inside. She was looking out the window. That's the way it is. You better chase that crook away, Emily Johnson, before it's too late. The girl thanked the woman profusely. Thank you for everything. I don't know anything about the tape yet, but now I know who owns the box. You're right. The jokes are over. We need to hire detectives before it's too late. I'm sorry, I must have gotten you pretty late. Should we call a cab? It's getting late, but Lucy shook her head negatively. No, to be honest, I really should go home. A good thing the older ones picked up the younger one from daycare on their own, and I don't live far away, just a couple blocks from here. 6 Madison Street. Good night. Glad to be of help. I'll see you tomorrow. Emily didn't sleep well. She wondered whether she should go to a detective agency or go straight to the police. In the morning, she didn't find Lucy at work and became alarmed, asking the staff. They didn't know anything. Then Emily in the personnel department found out her phone number, began to call, but she was unavailable. The bank owner was very frightened. She knew that Lucy is very responsible, would never miss work. The girl decided to go to her house to find out what was wrong. The door was opened by Lucy's children. Little Jimmy was crying loudly and calling for his mom. He was roaring hard, and Tommy was trying to calm him down. And Emily ran around them with clean tights and said, "Mommy didn't come home last night. She called yesterday that she was near the house and would be right over. And that was it. We're scared. Mom never did that. We stayed up till morning, all listening at the window, watching. Tommy even ran outside a couple times, looking for Mommy, but she's still gone. We didn't go to school. Mom usually picks us up. Jimmy hasn't been taken to the garden, and we don't know what to do. Jimmy's been screaming since this morning. We can't calm him down. What if something happened to her? What are we gonna do? Help, don't go away, please." Emily tried to calm the babies as best she could. We're all going to calm down now. My name is Aunt Emily. I work with your mom. I promise I won't go anywhere until we find out where she is. Tommy, have you eaten? What have you got in here? I'm going to heat up some porridge and cutlets and feed my brother and sister. I'm going to call the hospitals. Emily helped Emily change her brother's clothes, washed him, held him close, gave him some water to drink, and whispered softly, "That's it, Jimmy, quiet. Don't cry. We'll find Mommy soon. I promise you. We need to eat now. Sit down in the chair. Tommy, they'll feed you too." The boy nodded and fiddled around, trying to pick up a cutlet. Tommy, too, was greatly relieved to have this kind woman with them now. His mother had often said that he was the oldest, that he was her first helper, that he should always look after them, but she had never gone away for so long, and now he was really scared. Turns out Tommy couldn't do anything without Mommy wasn't ready to be the oldest. Emily immediately called the ambulance dispatcher, and they found out where Lucy Wilson had been taken yesterday. The ambulance crew transported the victim to City Hospital 5. After the accident, she was hit by an unknown person right on the crosswalk and fled. The condition as of yesterday was serious. The girl turned pale. She even felt sick. She realized Lucy simply wanted to eliminate. Apparently they had discovered the surveillance, and the thought that these 3 children could be orphaned because of her. Emily felt uncomfortable. She also realized that this was serious and she couldn't figure it out alone. She called a high school acquaintance, Sam. He was now working as an investigator. "Sam, it's me, Emily Johnson. I'm in trouble. I really need your help. I've gotten a very nice person hurt because of me. Everything is so messed up. I'm scared." The man responded immediately, "Come to the River Street office anytime before 6:00 p.m. I'll be there to help you. You gave me all my math tests to cheat on. You helped me out on my math test. Don't worry, we'll figure it out." The children ate, and Emily told them, trying to find the words, "I found out what happened to your mom. She's in the hospital. But the most important thing is that she's alive, and we're all going to go see her together now. Get dressed quickly. Jimmy, get the tights, I'll help you." Emily learned at the emergency room that a mother of many children was in the trauma unit. Emily struggled to get the nurse to let her and the children into the room. The sight was horrifying. Emily shuddered involuntarily at the sight of the poor woman's battered face, bruises, abrasions, bruises, her leg in traction, her arm in a cast. The little ones immediately rushed to her, shouting out, "Mommy, Mommy, are you hurt? We were so afraid you'd die like Daddy. You'll be discharged soon. How will we be alone without you?" Lucy was crying, trying to hug the children with one arm. Emily was crying too. She realized that this horror had happened because of her. "I'm sorry, Lucy, I was told you were hit by a car. Did you remember the license plate number or the driver? I feel it's the same people our manager contacted. It's my fault. I got you into trouble, and you got hurt because of me. I'm going to the police now and tell them everything. Let them find the culprits and punish them. I don't worry about the kids. They'll stay with me for now. I'll look after them. I'll pay for the operation. The doctor said it'll be done in a week." "God, what subhumans," Lucy replied quietly. "The police have already come, but they won't be looking for anyone. The license plates were in the mud. I couldn't see the driver. It all happened so fast, and there are plenty of black Jeeps in town. But you're right. It wasn't a random accident. That car was purposefully coming at me. I still remember that horror. The doctor says the treatment and recovery will be long. I'll have titanium plates put in. But I'm still grateful to God that I'm alive. It's scary to imagine that my children could have been orphaned and taken to an orphanage. Thank you for helping with the kids. I don't know how much longer I'll be here. And money is tight, to be honest. We weren't rich enough on a cleaner's salary and small allowances. We've been living from paycheck to paycheck, so I don't have any savings. I would be very grateful if you could help me pay for the operation and treatment. I'll gradually pay it all back in installments." Emily waved her hands. "Come on. You don't owe me anything. It's the least I can do for you. I'm sorry again. I didn't mean for things to turn out this way. Tell me about the kids. What's the story?" Lucy began to list in a businesslike manner. "Roma is having trouble with algebra. Please make him study. Otherwise he's lazy. Mila is a smart girl. She won't be a problem. Igor is also allergic to citrus fruits. He should never be given any. And his throat is weak. I don't let him have ice cream. But they're not picky. They eat everything. If they get cranky, you're strict with them. Please bring the kids to see me more often. I'm going crazy. My cell phone broke, and there are only shards left." While the children sat with their mother, Emily ran to the supermarket and bought some things for the hospital. She helped Lucy wash her face with wet wipes, fed her, and promised to visit as often as possible. Then she moved the children to her apartment and left them for a while. She herself went to the police to see an investigator she knew. Semyon listened to everything carefully, took notes, and then said, "You're right. The case is serious and strange. Is it really all because of some videotape? And why was it kept in a safe deposit box for so many years? So the tape was very important to your father and very important to the manager. And your cleaning lady's accident was obviously staged. Okay, I'll take the case. Except I don't have the manpower. We're all stretched to the limit here. Times are a little hectic, you know. I'm gonna have to run around and watch." Emily replied, "Let's get the private investigators involved. I'll go to them now and they'll help you. I can't have someone taking the bank away from me. It was my father's baby. He was so proud of owning it, he left it to me. So he believed I could handle it. I really hope you bring the bastards to justice. And I feel so sorry for Lucy. That woman got hurt for nothing. She's got 3 kids. If you hear any news, call me at once." From that day, Emily began a new life, completely unfamiliar to her and difficult. Emily was used to living alone. In the morning, she had time for a leisurely coffee, a jog, and after work she went to the pool to relieve stress. There was little to no cooking, except for a light salad. But now she had 3 children living with her. Emily would get up at the crack of dawn, make them breakfast and sandwiches for school. The youngest was cranky, didn't want to wake up, brush his teeth and go to the garden, raged and missed his mom. It was worth a lot of effort to get the little one to eat and get dressed. After work, Emily also drove to pick up the older children from school, took the youngest from the garden, cooked dinner, checked their lessons with great difficulty, put the youngest to bed, and she was exhausted. She often wondered how Lucy managed it all, where she got the strength for all the children at once. Emily used to wonder why there were no cleaning ladies, manicures and haircuts. There's no time to do her hair, no time to look in the mirror. A day later, Emily and the kids visited Lucy. The operation had been successful, but it was still a long way off. The kids were waiting for Mommy to come home. After that incident with the theft of videotape, Gerald Peterson urgently went on sick leave and did not appear at work at all. Oddly enough, things were getting better without him. And Emily was getting more and more into the management process every day and was already managing the staff with knowledge. And soon she received a call from the investigator and summoned her to his office. Jake knew it was wrong, wearing Frederick out. He asked Ashley to find out from Frederick about the tape. She told him that he was hiding it in a safety deposit box. Ashley also helped Emily's father go to the other side of the world. She and Ashley sometimes slept together. When they drank champagne, she bragged about giving Frederick drugs that were contraindicated. He naively thought he was taking vitamins. What Jake wanted to take from the bank was just revenge on Frederick. After all, the man was bossing Jake around. That made him angry. Jake dreamed of being a director, too. He considered himself more worthy, not a janitor. Ashley was just trying to scare her into minding her own business. Emily was shocked at who had surrounded her father over the years. She said quietly, "I want you never to get out of prison, Gerald." And that Ashley is found and put away. The detainee chuckled in her face. Not likely. She got off the pills a long time ago, sold her possessions and slipped overseas to another rich suitor. I don't doubt it. I'll get 5 years at the most, and then I'll get out early. My lawyers know the business. So I won't say goodbye. I'll see you again, Oliver Cosby said. He kept silent on the advice of a lawyer, but he realized, do not wash. There was too much evidence. Therefore, he dreamed only to reduce the term. Emily came out of the investigator completely dead. Suddenly, she saw a young guy in expensive clothes. He was nervous, pacing back and forth, saw the girl and rushed over to her. "Hello. You're Emily Johnson, aren't you?" "I'm William, Oliver Cosby's son. Please take a statement. My dad's really looking at a lot of jail time. I'll pay whatever it takes. I promise my father won't bother you again. Don't ruin our lives, please." Emily looked down at him and replied sharply, "What does money have to do with it? Your father almost got a woman with many children killed. That's unforgivable. There's no way I'm taking back the application. Your father will be held accountable by the law. For people like you, there is no concept of honor, conscience, and humanity." The boy was indignant. "You're lying. Dad couldn't do such a thing. He's not like that. I don't believe you. How are you not ashamed to defame a famous businessman?" Emily just waved her hand, realizing that it was useless to explain anything now. Emily ran out of the police station in tears, feeling sorry for her late father. Why did he have to go through all this? If it hadn't been for Ashley, he could have lived and lived. He warmed his enemies on his chest, fed and provided for them. And now Lucy's suffering with a leg she only wanted to help. Emily wanted to take a hot bubble bath and be alone, to weep her grief for her father. But she thought of the children and jumped up and down. She'd lost track of time. It was time to pick up George from the garden and Robert and Emily from school. Robert called worriedly, "Aunt Emily, where are you?" "Emily and I picked up George from daycare. We're waiting for you in the driveway. Will you be home soon?" Emily exhaled. "Thank you, darlings. I've been to the police. I'm on my way." How lucky your mom is to have such independent, intelligent children. "I admire you surprisingly." In the midst of worrying about the children, Emily had forgotten her recent sorrows. Watching George fall asleep, twisting the corner of the blanket and smiling in his sleep, she smiled. Now the children didn't seem like a burden, but rays of sunshine, giving warmth and positivity. A month later, Lucy was finally discharged. During this time, Emily became so attached to the children that she considered them her own family. She and Lucy became best friends. Emily decided to change Lucy's life and insisted, "Lucy, you're a smart woman. You have 3 beautiful smart kids. I really need a smart accountant. Please do it. The salary is much higher than the bonus. No offense. After the fractures to run with buckets and rags, you are generally contraindicated. You need to take care of yourself. And anyway, I've got a surprise for you. Tomorrow we're going to throw it all away and have a little party. No matter how great a mom you are, you shouldn't forget that you're a woman." Lucy thanked her friend heartily. She had already forgotten what it meant to be a woman. After the death of her beloved husband, who was the breadwinner, her life seemed to have stopped. If it weren't for the children, she would have broken down for sure. Emily literally dragged her by force to the hairdresser's salon. Lucy had her hair cut short, dyed blonde, and had a neat manicure. Emily picked out a decent suit with an interesting cut, which emphasized her advantages. Lucy, looking at herself in the mirror, did not recognize this lovely young woman in the reflection. The children were also delighted. They all circled around her and cheered. "Mommy, how beautiful you are. It suits you very well." And the bank employees opened their mouths when Emily came in with Lucy and introduced her to everyone. "Good morning. I present to you the new accountant, Lucy Anderson. Please love and welcome." The women murmured, "Is that our Lucy, the cleaning lady?" "No way. Emily, are you kidding? What kind of cleaning lady is an accountant?" "But Sam," the manager whispered to them, "you're just gossiping." Someone also smirked. "What kind of teacher is a principal? And what's wrong with Emily's leadership? I think she's doing a great job." "Shut up about Lucy too. If that's the principal's decision, I guess she knows who's doing what and who's worthy of what work." Emily did get up to speed. It turned out that it was quite realistic to run a bank, and she was doing well. Soon there was to be a trial against the manager, Oliver Cosby. Emily could not miss this event. "I was pleased when I heard the scoundrel had been put away for a long time," she said outside the courthouse. William caught up with her. He wasn't shouting or outraged. Instead, he was somehow confused and panicked. "Emily, you were right. My foster father is a scary man. I just didn't realize anything about it. But when I found out from the investigator how many things he'd done, I don't even want to live anymore. I loved him so much, idolized him, considered him my example. I don't know how to live now. All the accounts are blocked, the mansion is mortgaged, and I'm an outcast for all the saucers, who used to feed like jackals from my father's hand. Now they're turning their noses up at me and rushing to disown me too." Emily sighed. "It's all sad. But don't lose heart. Start a new life with a clean slate and things will get better. If you'll excuse me, I have to run. Have a good day." 6 months flew by like a blink of an eye. Emily was successfully building a career. Lucy was doing great too. On weekends they went out with their children to the park, pizza parlors and movies. Lucy always complained, "Emily, okay, I'm over 40, I have 3 kids. But why are you alone? You're so smart, so beautiful. You need to get married. Think about your children. Isn't there any man in sight?" Emily sighed. "I know, you're right. I'm tired of being alone. But first of all, there's no time at all. And secondly, well, not yet my heart. Take, for example, the investigator of my school friend Frederick. He is so and so to me, and called me to the cafe and flowers, and on a date a couple of times went. He's good and right and positive. What can I do if I don't love him? And I don't want to lie. So we're still friends as before. But I wait and believe that fate will find me." That morning Emily went for a run at 5:00 a.m. as usual. She loved those early mornings, when after a chilly night, the city was as if washed and combed. And so quiet everywhere. No, not yet the hustle and bustle of honking cars. The girl ran along the bridge, enjoying the sunrise. Suddenly she saw a man fall off the railing and already threw his leg over, about to jump off. Emily felt as if she'd been burned. "Oh my God, he's crazy. How high? The water's freezing. He's really drowning. I just wish I'd gotten there in time." Emily rashly rushed to the bridge and shouted, "Stop, don't do it, don't jump, you'll die." And then the man turned around. Emily gasped. It was William, Oliver Cosby's son. Though haggard and dead drunk, he too recognized the girl and replied sharply, "Get back and stay out of the way. I'm going to jump anyway. I don't want to live. You hear? I don't want to. Nobody needs me. My mother's an alcoholic, my stepfather's a thief, and my foster dad's a felon. And I'm nothing, a weakling, not a man." With these words, the boy jumped into the water. Emily had no time to ponder, so she jumped in after him. The current was swift. But Emily had a swimming skill, and she dived hard until she brought the injured man to the surface and dragged him to the shore. The man was swallowed up in the water and couldn't breathe. The girl threw him over her knee, began to pound his back as hard as she could, and shouted in a voice that was not her own, "Wake up, you fool, crazy. I'll show you I don't want to live. You men are all the same weaklings. You can't do anything without a woman." Water poured out of William's mouth. He coughed and came to his senses. Emily was still slapping his cheeks and cursing. She was so angry. Some people clinging to life, struggling, and this one thought of jumping. William shook his head. "Thank you. When I went underwater, I was so scared. I changed my mind about dying, but I couldn't swim out. I went down like a stone. Don't fight, no more. It's just that after my foster dad went to jail, I really became an outcast. I don't have anybody now. I stopped wandering around. I don't have a place to live, either. I wanted to get a job in my specialty. I used to work in sales at my father's company, but somewhere after his high-profile arrest, I didn't get hired by any decent companies. Anyway, I got really down. I was so depressed. I got drunk and decided to kill myself. Emily suddenly put a friendly arm around the boy's shoulders. You're a fool, William. You scared me like that. Come to my place or we'll both catch pneumonia. I'll take the day off work, you'll stay with me, and then we'll see. William was so glad for the respite. Thank you. Emily, I'll never forget what you've done for me. You are my guardian angel. I owe my life to you. The two separately took hot showers, drank tea and brandy to keep from catching cold, chatted about everything. Emily herself did not realize how and when they reached for each other and did not get out of bed until the evening. The girl had fallen in love, lost her head. Her heart had finally throbbed. William, too, looked at her with devoted dog-like eyes, kissing her fingers and whispering, I love you. Emily, I will never betray you. You'll never regret us being together. Just don't push me away. Don't chase me away. How beautiful are you, like an oriental princess? I wish I could never let you out of my arms. The next day, Emily came to the bank and introduced him as her deputy and consultant. The guy took to the job with eagerness. He really was smart, had an entrepreneurial spirit, and decided to prove to everyone, and above all his beloved that worthy of her, that she can rely on him. Emily herself was in the clouds. She had a smile on her face. She was perfectly happy. At break time, she and Lucy had lunch at the cafe. I don't recognize you, Emily, always serious, focused, and now you're glowing. What's the secret? The girl laughed. William Cosby is my fiancé. I fell in love, Lucy, just like that in one day. I didn't think it could happen like that. I always thought you had to look around, meet someone first. I don't know what's happening to me. If I told you what happened last night, you'd think I was a fool. Emily told me everything. Her eyes lit up. Lucy was happy for her friend, supported her. Well, finally our snow queen has melted. I'm really glad that love has settled in your heart. I don't regret anything. Love like it's your last time. I want things to work out between you and William. He's not a bad lad. And the fact that his significant other turned out to be such a scoundrel is not his fault. William will be having babies soon, Emily chuckled. Well, you say that too. We've been together 24 hours. What babies? It's too early to think about that. We'll live. We'll see. But the words of her friend were prophetic. And in a month, Emily realized that she was pregnant. William was so happy. He loved children and had long dreamed of a family. And now all his deepest desires were coming true. Emily was a little confused. How am I going to go on maternity leave? Who's going to manage everything? But even here, Lucy advised her, will you stop being an iron lady? Let yourself go. Let William take the reins and just be a woman. That's what you taught me once. You can see William's working so hard getting on with the staff. He has a way with people. A man should be the provider, the head of the family. It's very important to them. So let him be. Everything will be fine. You'll see I'm the godmother. No, every experience has its own charm. The young people married modestly, without pomp. At first there were misunderstandings between them, as in any young family. Yes, and in the work of Emily to the last checked William, controlled, went every day to the bank, her self-held meetings. Husband took offense. Emily, I love you very much, but I do not understand why you still do not trust me. Things in the bank are going great. I'm trying. Why don't you stop controlling me? We're family. Do you really think I'm going to let you down? Just relax. Enjoy your pregnancy. You should be taking care of yourself, not working your ass off. You know what? Why don't you take a vacation? Someone whispered to me that there's a 2-week vacation to a sanitarium. Pine forests, nature, pool, massages, all your feminine treatments. Well, I've already bought 2 vouchers. Go with Lucy. You'll have a good time. You'll get your feminine chirps. Emily rejoiced, but then remembered, what about my children? Who will be with them? They're in the middle of school, aren't they? Lucy would never agree, her husband smiled. But you're wrong. I've already arranged everything with her. I'll take care of the children. I will visit you on weekends. Come on, make up your mind. And Emily agreed. When else would she get the chance to be alone with her best friend? The vacation was wonderful. The women walked, joked, laughed. Emily enjoyed swimming in the pool, drinking oxygen cocktails, relaxing, and still missed William very much. And Lucy couldn't get enough of him. Like a hen, she couldn't do without her children. She was anxious to get home, worried whether William would be able to cope. Anyway, the women decided they'd had enough rest for a week, so they arrived home unannounced. What was their surprise when they saw what was going on at home? It was completely idyllic. William was making dumplings with the children. The whole table was littered with their masterpieces. They were laughing, because little Ager's dumplings were not dumplings, but dumplings. Everyone was covered with flour. The man said, "Your mom will be happy, and my Emily will be here too. We'll make them a whole pot of dumplings. Let your mommy rest a little. Women need it. Emily and I are going to have a baby soon. You'll be helping to nurse." And then we heard from the hallway, "Leave the water. We're here now." "Sorry, William, we couldn't take it. That's what we women are like. We missed you so much." The children immediately rushed to hug their mother, telling her all their news. Lucy kissed them, pressed them to herself, and realized, here it is, her rest, her meaning of life, her children. William also hugged his wife, kissed her, and circled her, boasting, "Really, we were good. We have settled and do not quarrel. Everything is fine at the bank. No problems. So be calm. You got the best husband. I've got everything under control too. I missed you so much, my little sweetheart. So, everyone to the table." William wondered if all their efforts had been worth it. "All right, let's feed our ladies." Emily cooked better than Misha, she praised her husband. She didn't regret committing her life to him. She also realized the importance of listening to her heart and trusting it. William had no relationship with his adoptive father, had never gone to see him in prison, and wanted nothing to do with the man, but he opened up to Emily and told his life story. "Life in my birth family can be described in one word," Hell William said. "His mother drank heavily, his stepfather stole, and then sold the stolen goods. That's how we lived. The house was always dirty. Nobody seemed to notice me at all. And when I tried to draw attention to myself, I was beaten. When I was 6, I ran away from home, wandered, froze, hid on heating pipes. Hunger made my stomach cramp. I was so weak that one day I just passed out on the road. I was almost run over by a truck, just as my future foster father was passing by. At first, I just lived with him. He fed me, clothed me, and then he finally took me in. He got my parents disenfranchised and adopted me, and for that I am certainly grateful to him. I loved that man, idolized him, worked my ass off to make him proud of me. You know, Dad was a tough guy, didn't show much emotion. His job always came first. And yet he loved me in his own way. He provided for me, even if he didn't spoil me. That's why it hurt so much when his dark side came out. I think I was his cover. A lot of people respected him for picking up a poor boy and adopting him. I don't know how I feel about him, both love and hate at the same time. I often wonder how he is in prison. Does he miss me? Does he remember me sometimes? William said. Emily suddenly suggested. So you visit him and find out everything. Why agonize? After all, he once saved you from death. Now he's in prison himself, and you can't disown him. I hated your father myself. He wanted to take everything away from me. I'm the one who put him behind bars, you might say. But things have changed a lot since then. He's almost like a grandfather now. You need to talk. It'll make you feel better. William was hesitant to take that step for a long time, but he went anyway. He brought a package to the date. He was very nervous in the visiting room, not knowing what he would say to his father, how their meeting would go. He remembered him as confident, smug. And then the old man was brought in, wrinkled face, prison robe, faded gaze. Oliver sighed heavily and was the first to speak. "Thank you, son, for coming. I've waited so long for this. I know I've done a lot of bad things and I deserve to be here. It may be torture, but you have no right to resent me. I certainly didn't do anything bad to you or wish anything on you. I remember how I carried you to the car, and you were as light as a feather. One bone pressed your face against me and cried, and I, a healthy adult man who felt sorry for few people in this life, trembled. Something in my soul turned over. I loved you and I love you, son. It's important to me that you know that. You're the good and the brightest thing I've ever been able to do in my life. Tell me honestly, looking me in the eye, why did you decide to come and see me? Out of pity. How do you even live? I'm sorry. After my arrest, did you become a beggar too?" William's heart trembled. He came over and warmly hugged his father's shoulders as if he was a child. "I came here because I love you, Dad. No matter what you've done, you won't stop being my father. I just took a long time to forgive you. And Emily, my wife, helped me do it." "Yes, Dad, Emily's my wife. I was going to jump off a bridge. I was going to die. She saved me from dying. And you're going to be a grandfather soon. Emily is pregnant. William looked at his father apprehensively, waiting for his judgment. After all, it was Emily's fault that he'd been imprisoned. But Oliver, on the contrary, replied, I won't deny it, I hated her at first. But prison is such a place. It's a lot of time to rethink your life. Man, continued the text following the same guidelines. I've rethought everything. My behavior, my attitude to people, and of course to you, straw man. Now I always regret and repent to the point of pain. You see, I've never had anyone like you. Only you. I realized it too late. But it's your fault too, keeping it all a secret from me. You even got married in secret for fear of losing me. Well, Dad, that's a bit of a stretch, isn't it? We got married officially, and we got your permission. But the wedding was a small family affair, just on my whim. What's the use of pomp when you're the only family I've got? That's true, but you were wrong to hide your marriage from me in time, and now you're hiding your child too. Aye, son, what if you make your grandson an enemy of the people? They laughed. The easy conversation relieved the tension on both sides. Now, perhaps, Vasily felt the justice of the elderly Doc Lovo, who said a man needs a sense of empty space. And now, Daddy, will you be happy about the new addition to our family? I long to see your pride when you look at the little successor to your family. I'll be very happy, you mark my words, son. What greater joy for a father than to bless his child to create a new life. Thank you for preserving and continuing the history of our family. I'll go free when I'm old. Deciding to follow her husband, the wife saw him getting on the wrong train and hopped on. Mom, Dad, I want you to meet my boyfriend. Or rather, already with my fiancé, Emily said one evening, when they were sitting together at dinner. Susan gasped. Emily, how so? How long have you been dating him? And you haven't even said a word to us. It's all secret, all secret, all secret. Mom, but why not? We've been dating for a while, Emily replied. Michael came to see me with an injury. Anyway, it's been 2 months now. But the intentions are serious for both of us. Otter. Congratulations to you, pronounced the father, who had been silent until then. And when you had time to grow up, I didn't even notice. Time has flown by so quickly. You've graduated from the University of Medicine, you've begun to work, and now you're almost a bride. Yes, said the mother thoughtfully. I want a family like yours. You've always been perfect for me, Emily said. You talk to each other a lot, still write messages to each other. Respectful to my brother and me, among others. I even gave you guys as an example to Michael and told him that you were the standard of a perfect relationship for me. Emily, when are you going to introduce us? Susan asked. Michael and I are coming over for lunch this weekend. Mom, you don't bother cooking much, okay? You'll make a lot of dishes again. You'll get tired, so just make it hot and that's it. Michael and I will pick up some cake on the way. Emily, I'll certainly try, but you know me, I probably won't be able to do that, Susan replied, grinning. I like cooking. I like feeding you guys goodies, but I'll try. Emily had been working as a trauma doctor at the clinic for several years now. She graduated from the local medical university and immediately got a job at the clinic. Sometimes she took on inpatient duty, but only a couple of shifts a month. And meeting Michael happened right in the medical office. He was a pilot, an airplane commander. Hello, come in, Doctor, Emily said in her duty phrase. It was a phrase she said 30 times every day. She didn't put much emotion into it. Absolutely not. And this time she said it without even lifting her head. Michael entered in his pilot's uniform, and Emily couldn't take her eyes off him for long. Tall, statuesque, handsome. Good afternoon, said the young man. I didn't expect to see such a fragile, beautiful person in the trauma doctor's chair. Emily broke into a smile. And you, I see, from ship to ball, the girl asked. Yes, you're right. Just off the flight, we flew with a flight from Vienna, and there was a rowdy passenger flying with us. The whole crew had to subdue him. That's what he got. Michael showed Emily his injured arm. Well, I hope you landed normally, Emily tried to joke. As you can see, both myself and all the passengers on Vienna to New York flight 345 arrived at our destination on time, the man reported back to her. Yes, you have a nervous job, Emily said and began to examine her arm. I'm going to send you for x-rays now. We need to find out if there's a fracture. Here you go, room 205 is on the second floor. You'll take the x-rays and then come back to me. Michael nodded. He walked around for about 15 minutes, then came in again, but knocked first. Emily had already looked at his picture in the program. I want to reassure you there is no fracture. I'm going to give you some ointment now. You will put ointment on your bruise twice a day. I promise your arm will be healed before the wedding, and she handed the pilot a prescription to the pharmacy. The young man took the prescription in his hands. Then he said, Emily, I don't do this every day, but I want to take you out to dinner tonight. Emily, who had filled out the chart in the computer, immediately looked up. She was very excited about the offer and of course accepted it, but she needed to pause for the sake of decorum, which she did. You know what, Michael, I don't get offers like this every day either, so I'll take it, Emily answered and smiled at the man. Where should I pick you up? He asked. Emily gave him the address of the apartment where she lived. Michael picked her up at 7 p.m., as they had agreed. Emily put on the most beautiful dress, came out to him in heels, thus conquering him with her beauty and charm. I'm even more convinced that I didn't ask you to dinner for nothing. You're adorable, Michael said as he opened the car door for Emily. Thank you so much for the compliment, she said shyly. They had a wonderful evening, a delicious dinner, pleasant company. It was as if they were made for each other, and that's what they both thought. Since then they met often, not every day, because Michael had flights and Emily was on night duty. But they were always drawn to each other. Michael was telling his mother about his new girlfriend, Susan. She was an overbearing woman, constantly controlling her son, always wanting to know where he was and with whom. That's why she was wary of every girl he met. Mom, Emily's great. She will definitely like you, I assure you, reported to his mother, like a schoolboy, 30-year-old Michael. And where did you two meet? Inquired already Susan, organizing her son's interrogation. In the hospital, he answered. In the voice of the mother was heard a note of surprise. At the hospital? Yes, Mom, in the hospital. Remember we had a fight in the cabin of the airplane? After that I went to the hospital. Doesn't she work there as a doctor? Is your new girlfriend a trauma doctor? Susan asked. Yes. What hospital does she work at? At the First Regional Hospital. Mom, do you want to see her too? My son snickered. No, not yet. But Susan has already thought out that in the next long-distance flight of her son, she will go to this new girl for a checkup. Don't worry, Mom. I'll introduce you to her very soon. But Susan met Emily faster than Michael had introduced them. 2 days later, she was already standing on the threshold of the hospital campus, knew everything about Emily that could be learned from the internet: how long ago she graduated from university, what is her work experience, in which office receives and until what time. How much is her appointment without an appointment? It was impossible to make an appointment. All the nearest appointment was taken, so Susan went to pay for it. The reason, of course, she made up allegedly a sore knee, although a woman like Michael's mother will run around the city for another 10 years, and nothing will hurt her. Next, Emily uttered a phrase that had become a familiar one. Susan didn't have to be reminded a second time. She flew into the office like a bullet. Emily was surprised to see her in her office, but she didn't let on. Michael showed her a picture of his mother and told her that she was overprotective and overprotective. Hello, Emily said in a sweet voice. What are you complaining about, Susan? My knee hurts. Periodically, that is, she corrected herself in time. Does it hurt now? Emily asked. Not right now, Michael's mother replied. At the moment, I can suggest that you go for an MRI of the lower extremities. We'll see what kind of treatment will work best for you and what's wrong with your knee, because joint problems are very common in women your age. Let's go." The woman didn't want to go anywhere. That's not why she came here. No, not right now. Maybe later. Emily, that's not why I came here at all. The girl, who had been writing something in the patient's medical records, stood up from the table and looked at her in surprise. "Why did you come, Susan?" Emily said. "I can guess, though. You're Michael's mom. He's told me a lot of nice things about you." That made Susan smile. Really, she answered calmly. "And I want to know from you about the seriousness of your intentions for my son. Michael, he is my only son, and I do not want him to be used and abandoned as second-rate material. You have no idea how much I care about him. Yes, he works hard, he has money." Susan Emily interrupted her monologue. "I have very serious intentions for Michael. I love him, and I want to spend the rest of my life with him. I'm not the kind of girl who takes advantage of a man and leaves him, don't worry. Now, if you have everything, you can go with your knee if you want to, and if it is really hurting, you can get it sorted out. Come in by appointment or call me, and I'll make an appointment for you myself. The patients sitting in the hallway are waiting for my appointment too." Susan got up from her chair. She wasn't very pleased that Emily had asked her to leave so unceremoniously, but she didn't let it bother her. "Very good, Emily. All right, I'll go. I hope Michael introduces us very soon. And I also hope Michael doesn't find out I'm here." And the woman left the office. At the end of the workday, Emily pondered the arrival of her potential future mother-in-law. Why had she come like that, unannounced? She considered her arrival to be insolent and rude, but she wouldn't tell Michael about it. After all, it was his mother, and she wished him nothing but the best. Emily also wondered what impression she had made on the woman, but of course she wouldn't know about that either, because Susan wouldn't ask about it directly. Emily had been very stressed about her mother's condition lately. Susan was thoughtful, but did not say anything, although they had a very trusting relationship. Although Emily lived separately, she came to her parents' house several times a week. Or they met with her mother on neutral territory in a cafe, at the theater, just in the park. Susan had recently begun to notice her husband's coldness toward her. She and Jason had been together for 30 years, and all that time it seemed to Susan that they treated each other very tenderly. And just the day before yesterday, she had gone to her favorite lingerie store that she and her husband often visited. She needed new pajamas, and in front of the store entrance, she saw her husband's car. "Strange, Jason's here without me," she thought to herself. "He must want to make me happy." While she thought about it, Jason came out of the store, got in his car, and drove away. Susan didn't even have time to react. With the hope that tonight she would get a present, the woman ran into the lingerie store satisfied. "Girls, please pick me up some pajamas," she said. "But not like my grandmother's, but with lace." "We understand," Susan. The sales clerks, who knew Susan and Jason's family, said friendly and began to pick out clothes for her. Jason ran out of the lingerie store in a hurry and left the bag with a lace bodysuit on the counter. The salesgirls didn't notice it right away, but only when Susan left. Coincidentally, Susan mixed up the packages and took the one that belonged to her husband Jason and left her own. It was only at home that she noticed this exchange of goods. That evening, excitedly after dinner, she unpacked her purchase. But what was her surprise when she saw in the bag not her pajamas at all, but a pink, lacy, translucent bodysuit. And the size was clearly not hers. She took the receipt out of the bag and decided to call the store, which was going to close in 15 minutes. She wanted to let her know that she had gotten the wrong package today. "Hello, girls, I came to see you today for pajamas," the woman said. She was recognized on the other end of the line. I think I mixed up the bags. I didn't take my own, but in the bag with someone else's purchase, she said. Do you have the receipt? The girl on the other end of the line asked. I'll look at it. Yes, there is, said Susan, who pulled out a check for a considerable amount of money. She thought to herself that someone's man was very generous to his woman. Please tell me the number of the discount card. We can use it to tell you who the purchase belongs to, the girl said. Just a second. Susan took the check, called the numbers on the receipt. This card and the purchase belonged to Jason Smith. Susan, hearing her husband's first and last name, fell into a stupor. But she needed to finish her dialogue with the store employee. Okay, got it. I'll return the merchandise tomorrow and pick up mine. Thank you. Have a good evening, she said, and hung up. After the conversation, she once again went to the gift bag that contained the item that wasn't hers, unfolded the bodysuit. It was about a size 44. Susan's size now was closer to a 58. This before about 15 years ago, she might have fit into this bodysuit, but definitely not now. Who's this for? Jason bought lingerie. Did he have a mistress? Questions immediately began to pop into her head. The thoughts made a cold sweat run down her spine. No, my husband is not capable of that. We have lived in love and harmony for 30 years. Raised 2 children. Susan thought. She sat down in the chair and couldn't move. It was as if she had been electrocuted. It was the phone call that brought her out of her thoughts. Susan, hi. Why aren't you answering your phone? It was her best friend Ashley calling. Hello? Susan, can you hear me? I can hear you, Susan mumbled quietly. Susan, what's wrong? What's wrong with your voice? I don't know. I think something's wrong. Can I come over now? Ashley asked, who was in the neighborhood where Susan and Jason lived. Yes, come over, I'm home, Susan added and hung up. She sat in the chair with the same unfortunate pink lace bodysuit in her hands until Ashley arrived. Here, look, she handed Ashley the bodysuit. What is it? Ashley asked, surprised, twirling the underwear in her hands. A bodysuit. My husband bought it for someone. Susan told her friend the story. Well, Susan, what if it's a mistake? You've already got yourself in a twist, her friend consoled her. Yeah, do you believe in this idea of a mistake? Jason was buying lacy lingerie, and it wasn't for me, Susan summarized. I saw it with my own eyes. Yes, you did. Don't you want to ask him yourself? You've always said that Jason and you have a trusting relationship, Ashley suggested. I guess I'll have to do that. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to do it, because then my whole idea of a perfect family will be destroyed overnight. But it's better than not knowing, Susan said. Let's have some tea, because I'm so thirsty. She bustled around the stove in the kitchen. Ashley stayed at her friend's house until evening, and then she left. Her presence calmed Susan a little, but the arrival of her husband from work brought her back down to earth. She decided not to tell him about the purchase she'd discovered. Hey Jason, how was your day? Susan asked her husband as usual. The same, sweetheart. As usual, Jason replied tiredly. No, Amy, that's not the case. Susan pulled herself together to tell her the problem. It's that your father is cheating on me. Emily could not believe this information, as she had found out about it by accident. Susan recounted to her daughter the whole story with underwear, which completely accidentally surfaced in the woman's life. Yes, I never thought that my father could do such a thing, Emily said thoughtfully. Do you know who she is? No, and I want to find out soon. I just don't know how. Amy, I lied to Michael by telling him that we have a perfect family. We're just a normal family with a typical cheating husband. That's how it turns out, as sad as it looks. While the women were talking, The waiter brought them coffee. "Thank you very much," Emily thanked him for the order. The waiter nodded in response. "Mom, we need to think of a way to get him out. Let's think about it together. I just don't know how to act in a situation like this, because it's the first time I've been in it." And Susan cried softly. "Mommy, please calm down. No one deserves your tears. I know it hurts, but we'll get through this together." Emily hugged her mom tightly. That night, Jason came in and said that he had to go to his mother's house in another town, that she was supposedly sick. "I'll take the train. It'll be faster and there won't be any traffic. I'm leaving tomorrow night." "Maybe I should come with you," Susan suggested timidly. "No, not yet," he replied quickly. "You know your mother doesn't like you very much, don't you? Let's not traumatize her just yet." "All right," Susan sighed. She had no relationship with her mother-in-law, no matter how they tried to make it work. Her mother-in-law was a bossy woman who wanted Jason to be with her. And when Susan came into his life, she didn't take kindly to her. Grandchildren Emily and Anthony loved immensely. But Susan never accepted. And Susan was very upset by this fact. But she gave up trying to please her mother-in-law. "What time is your train tomorrow?" Susan wondered whether Jason would lie or tell the truth. "At 5:10 p.m., her husband answered. "I'll walk you out." "You don't have to. Mind your own business. You have a lot of work to do around the house," he said. And it was true, there was always a lot of work in his house. It seemed to never end. Susan decided to follow her husband, who went to check on her sick mother. Arriving at the train station a little earlier, the woman saw her husband. True, he got on the train, not the one Susan expected, but the one that was going in the exact opposite direction. And Susan decided on her own head to quickly jump into the last carriage of the train to follow him. After going through all the cars and finding Jason in one of them, Susan sat behind him. It wasn't a long ride, only about an hour. Susan filled the stop. It was the Kalinina station. It was dark outside the window. There was some small, almost abandoned station. Susan was afraid to get off here following her husband. But on the platform she saw clearly that her husband went to the girl, kissed her, and they walked together by the hand into the darkness. Susan, seeing this picture, cried. The train moved on. Where was she going now? She didn't know. She just sat and rode in silence. After half an hour she came to her senses and realized she had to get off, so she got off at the nearest station. The station was quite large, but where to go, the woman did not know. So she called her daughter. "Emily, hi." Susan sobbed into the phone. "Mom, what's wrong? Where are you?" Emily tried to make sense of her words through the noise of the train and her mom's tears. "I don't know where I am," Susan continued to sob. "Mom, calm down. What is near you right now?" The daughter was trying to find out her mother's whereabouts. She didn't know she had traveled far away. "I went to the station to follow Jason. He said he was going to his mother's, but he got on a different train, so I got on the other train with him and followed him. He got off at some station called Kalinin, and there was a girl waiting for him." From these words, Susan again became very offended, and she sobbed again. "Mom, what is the name of your station?" Susan said the name of the station, which she read here on the sign. "Now find yourself some place to wait for us. As soon as I find out where you are, I'll come straight over." After talking to her mother, Emily rushed to open a map on her phone. Michael was beside her. He had the day off today. "Michael, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to drag you into our family problems, but I can't do it any other way. Mom needs help." At the same time, Emily searched for the name of the station where Susan was now. She found it quickly and found that it was about 120 kilometers from the city. Yeah, that's a long way for Mom to go. But we have no choice but to go pick her up. She's very depressed, Emily said. Michael went with her. He was driving, which was good because she was very nervous. And there was no telling if she would be able to drive for that long. Emily and Michael had a bit of a mix-up. It took about 2 to get to the station. With it already dark outside, Susan waited for them inside the station. During this time, she had already had time to digest her situation and calm down a bit. But still her condition was unstable. "Mom, are you okay?" The first thing Emily asked, meeting her mother's eyes. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm sorry for making you drive almost at night to pick me up." Susan felt uncomfortable, especially in front of Michael. "It's okay, Susan. Things happen in life." Michael was sympathetic. After picking up the woman, they all walked together to the parking lot where their car was parked. The drive back was faster, as it always was. Emily drove her mom home and they stayed the night at her house. After Susan fell asleep, Emily didn't dare call her dad, it was too late. But she couldn't bear to watch her parents' family crumble literally before her eyes. Jason picked up the phone relatively quickly. "Dad?" "Hi," Emily said into the phone. "Oh, Emily, hi. Is something wrong that you're calling at this late hour?" "Yes, Dad, there is. Why don't you tell me what's going on between you and Mom?" "Daughter, let's you and I talk about everything when I come from Mom's." Father's voice was anxious. "Dad, can you not lie to me? I know you're not at Grandma's." The father on the other end of the line fell silent. "Daughter, let's talk about everything afterwards. I don't feel comfortable talking right now," and he hung up. Emily didn't realize that it was pointless to ask her father for details now. She just had to be patient and wait. But she didn't have much patience. In the morning, Emily was awakened by a phone call from an unknown number. "Hello," Emily said through her sleep. She always slept so sweetly at her parents' house. "Is this Emily?" The pleasant female voice on the other end of the line asked. "Yes, it's me." Emily jumped up on her bed. "I'm Amber, your father's mistress. We need to meet tomorrow night at Cafe Rebecca at 8 o'clock in the evening," the girl said very quickly. "Okay," was all Emily had time to reply. Amber quickly hung up the phone, apparently so her father wouldn't overhear the conversation. Emily didn't tell anyone about the call, not her mother, not Michael, not her father. She decided to go to the meeting first, and then act according to circumstances. Cafe Rebecca was located in the center of the city, and was considered one of the most prestigious establishments. Emily had been there only once before, as a student, when she had gone there with her friends. This time Emily felt at ease already. She had money for this cafe. Last time, when she was still a student, going to this place took half of her scholarship. Once inside, she searched her eyes for this Amber. Emily didn't know what she looked like, but her dad's mistress had found her and waved her over. Emily cautiously made her way in her direction. "Emily, I'm going to have a short conversation with you. After all, you and I are not friends. I urge you to keep quiet about our conversation, otherwise it will be worse for you." Amber started the conversation. Emily carefully sat down in the soft chair. A waiter immediately came over to her. "I'll have a cedar latte, please," she said. One thing Emily remembered from her college days was that Rebecca's made very good coffee. The waiter nodded and walked toward the kitchen. "I have a favor to ask of you," Amber continued. "Get off my Michael, and I'll get off your father's back." Emily didn't understand anything. "What are you talking about? And what right do you have to tell me to leave Michael?" The girl was indignant. "I have every right," Amber shouted. "You're the reason Michael left me. He met you and left me." "What the hell are you talking about, Amber?" Emily still couldn't understand what kind of nonsense this girl sitting across from her was talking about. Before Michael met you, he and I dated. He was in love with me, and then he met you, and he turned his attention to you and forgot all about me. But I didn't let that go. I found out about your family and I got your father to fall in love with me. I had no trouble seducing him. Apparently he was so caught up in his old family relationships that he jumped on me like a hungry dog on a bone. What did your mommy do to him? Amber laughed. Don't you dare say that about my mommy, Emily exclaimed. She hated to hear such words about her parents. What's your dad like in bed? Amber continued to play. If you want your father back in the family, leave Michael alone, Amber said and got up from the table. Otherwise I'll make him marry me, which will completely break your mother. And I'm not kidding. I'm no joke. After saying that, Amber walked out of the cafe. Emily was shocked. The waiter had long ago brought her the cedar latte she had ordered, but she couldn't bring herself to take even one sip of coffee. Finally, she took that sip. The coffee warmed her up so much. And she began to think about what she should do next, whether she should tell Michael or her father or her mother, or leave Michael for the sake of bringing her father back into the family. Would her parents be able to maintain a good relationship after all this? Emily was at a crossroads. She then decided to just talk to her father about what was going on between him and her mother. The next morning, after canceling an appointment at work, Emily arrived at her father's workplace. Emily, what are you doing here so early in the morning? Why aren't you at work? Her father asked indignantly. He was uncomfortable that the whole mistress thing might come out. Dad, I came here so you could tell me everything. I don't recognize Mom. She's completely exhausted. Tell me, who is this woman? Emily went straight to talking about the mistress. She's a flight attendant, Jason replied nervously. But it's clear to me now, Emily said out loud, thinking she was speaking to herself. What has become clear to you, Emily? I don't get it. Her father was perplexed. Nothing. Dad, how serious is your relationship with this Amber? Oh, you already know her name. Good for you, Jason said ironically. Stop being ironic, Dad. Our family is crumbling before our eyes. How serious is your relationship with this woman? Honestly, daughter, I had a crush on her, but I didn't think it would go this far. Admittedly, the initiative came from her. But of course she wouldn't have missed out on a man like you, wealthy, successful, athletic, and handsome. Dad, don't start talking about Mom. Have you seen the state she's in? Or are you only interested in your job and this Amber? Emily was ready to explode, but held back as best she could. I'm not ready to leave the family yet, her father admitted. You know, I have a lot in common with Susan. I can't leave it all behind like that. But I can't leave Amber either. This is when Emily couldn't take it anymore. Daddy, don't you realize she's just using you? The girl screamed. Emily, calm down. Her father tried to calm her down, but to no avail. Emily burst into hysterics and ran out of the study, slamming the door loudly. She didn't get to have a frank conversation with her father. Jason was alone. He paced back and forth in his large office with his hands behind his back. He realized that this affair had gone too far, and it wouldn't be easy for him to get out of it. But what should he do? Leave Susan and go to Amber, the woman who'd made him young again? Or live out his life with his wife? He didn't know the answers to those questions, but he realized that his relationship with his daughter Emily had soured. Emily ran out of her father's office, ran to her car in the parking lot, and tried to calm down in the car. She didn't manage to calm down right away. When she was able to drive, the girl decided to go to her mother's house and talk to her. Today was Susan's day off. She was a little surprised at her daughter's sudden appearance. Emily, why aren't you at work? Asked a confused Susan, who hadn't slept well the previous night. And what's wrong with your eyes? Have you been crying? Emily went straight to the kitchen. Susan, without further ado, put the kettle on. Mom, I saw her, Emily pronounced. Her who? Well, Dad's mistress. Her name is Amber, and she works as a stewardess. Susan was wary of the word mistress, but where had Emily been able to see her? She called me on her own. Emily began to tell her story, and got upset again, reliving it all over again. Mom, the thing is, this Amber stole Dad on purpose for Michael. Daughter, are you okay? What are you talking about? Susan didn't realize if her daughter was delusional or telling the truth. Mom, I'm perfectly fine, she told me herself. If I want my father back in the family, I have to leave Michael. Allegedly, Michael dumped her and left her for me. I don't get it. Susan shook her head, trying to put what she had heard in order. Amber doesn't like Jason at all. That's what I'm telling you right now. She'd gotten involved with him to get back at me. And Jason fell for it. But she's beautiful, young, well-groomed, and she's got a lot of nerve. She told me that I had to leave Michael, and then Jason would come back to you. Susan was silent. She finally got the full meaning of what she had said. I have a counter question. Do you think I'd want your father after all this? And how disgusting. Jason falling for some young girl, betraying me, betraying the kids. Emily, do you have to move on with Michael? You have to make your own destiny. And if you love Michael, then by no means sell your love. Don't leave him for this Amber. If Michael is with you now, then he loves you. Emily, hearing these words from Susan's mom, walked over to her and hugged her tightly. Mommy, but I feel so sorry for you. Can you survive such a betrayal? I can. But Amber had forced him to leave his family. She'd blackmailed him into losing her, and he'd grown attached to her and couldn't live a day without her. After saying that, Jason went up to his bedroom to pack his suitcase. He did so quickly, and on his way out he added, I'll file for divorce myself. When he left, Susan let the tears fall. In her opinion, it was the end of her family, which she had so lovingly created all this time. But somehow life had to go on. Susan stood by Emily. Amber, learning that Emily wasn't going to leave Michael, freaked out and decided to act out to spite her. Daily, she told her lover Jason to leave the family. Jason, when you leave that Susan of yours and come to me so we can have a full family. I'm going to have a baby for you, Amber told Jason. His mistress took him in her affection, and Jason gave in, plucked up his courage and told Susan the truth. And Amber rejoiced. After Jason came to her for good, she'd pictured Emily. But the reaction of her powerlessness, her anger at her father for abandoning her mother. But it was Emily's own fault. Amber had warned her. Emily chose not to retaliate against Amber. Spent all her free time at her mom's, which is exactly what her loved ones wanted. Amber, not seeing the wounded response at all, decided to move on. She wanted Michael too, and she didn't need Jason. Michael was her target. So she needed to set up a meeting with Michael. Amber and Michael worked for the same airline. Michael was a co-pilot at first, and flew in the allotted hours and proved himself to his superiors in an extremely positive way. He became an aircraft commander. Amber worked for the airline as a flight attendant. She liked Michael immediately. In general, Amber had a love for pilots since childhood. She could not explain it in any way. But she read novels in her youth. For some reason, she imagined her soulmate was a pilot and no one else. When she saw Michael, she realized she was lost. She flirted with him for a long time, trying to draw attention to herself. Michael, who had no girlfriend at the time, fell for her advances and seductions. But he did not feel anything serious about her, and told her repeatedly. But Amber, at that moment, everything was fine. After all, Michael was with her, and it was the most important thing for her. And then Michael met Emily and disappeared. He left Amber, and he was honest with her about everything. She was furious, and she couldn't accept it. She couldn't accept that Michael had traded her for someone else. She didn't immediately follow Michael's new girlfriend. In principle, it wasn't hard to do. Emily had come to the airport a few times to pick Michael up after work. Then she found out all about Emily, her family, tracked down her father, and arranged a chance meeting in the parking lot. Amber went back to her big job to get Michael back, but he never came back to her. And one day, while leaving the airport with Michael, Amber struck up a conversation with him. "Michael, hey." Amber caught up with him. "How are you doing?" "Hey, yeah, I'm good." "Michael, I wanted to tell you that I'm not mad at you anymore," Amber said with a sly tone. "I finally met my love, too." "Yeah, I'm really happy for you. I really am." "I hope he's a good man?" Michael asked. "Yes, he is. And you know him?" "I know him. You intrigue me. Who is he? Tell me." "That's a mystery. Michael, why don't we go to the coffee shop tonight? Or do you want to come over for a cup of tea, just for old time's sake?" Amber needed to lure him into her web. She had a plan in her head. Michael gave it some thought and agreed. "Shall we? I'm not in any hurry right now. Emily's on shift till tonight." "Oh, great, to our favorite coffee shop like we used to." Aha. And Michael and Amber wrapped up at a diner near the airport. "Have you had breakfast, Michael?" No, I haven't. So I'm going to get some cereal with peanuts and tea." "That's right." "I do," Amber admitted to him, and ordered all the things she had listed. He ordered himself scrambled eggs and sausage and an espresso. Amber needed to lure Michael to her house at all costs. To do so, she opted for a sleeping pill in her purse, which she needed to discreetly slip into his drink. She had no trouble doing so. When Michael went to the bathroom, she calmly took and added the medicine to his coffee. Only she made a small dosage, so that he did not pass out right here in the cafe. Unsuspecting, Michael calmly ate his scrambled eggs, began to drink. After taking a couple of sips, he felt weak and drowsy. "I guess I'm so tired from the flight today that I'm really sleepy," Michael said, closing his eyes as he walked. Amber realized that now was the time to take action. "Michael, why don't we go to my place? You can take a nap at my place, because it's a long drive home." He couldn't resist, so he agreed. Happy, Amber took him under her arm and quickly led him to her car. As they drove, Michael fell asleep. She had to work hard to wake him up when they arrived and could barely get him up to her. When she got Michael into her apartment, Amber took him into the bedroom, took off his shirt, and covered him with a blanket. Then she undressed herself and lay down next to him. Amber did all of this so that she could take pictures of them lying in bed together and doing well. Those pictures were safely taken. There was no Photoshop needed. Everything looked so realistic that even a simpleton would believe it. After that, Amber got out of bed, changed into her house clothes, and lay down on the couch. Jason was on a business trip. There was no need to fear that he would suddenly come home. Michael woke up 4 hours later. He couldn't realize anything at first. "Where am I?" he whirled his head around, trying to figure it out. "Honey, I've got you," Amber said affectionately as she ran in at the sound of his voice. "You and I had such a good time." Michael couldn't understand a thing. "What time?" My head hurt like I'd been drinking nonstop for a week. "I thought we were at a coffee shop. How did I get here?" "You invited me to your place. So I went. I love you." Amber hugged him. Michael pulled her arms off his shoulders. "Don't, Amber. I don't believe there could be anything between us." "You don't believe it, but look." The girl showed him the pictures she had taken. "You set this whole thing up on purpose. You lured me to the cafe to slip me something. Michael couldn't believe the veracity of the pictures Amber was showing him. "Michael, it was your initiative, and I just went along with it," Amber replied. "Don't you ever send those pictures. Ashley, do you understand me? Do you? Are you threatening me?" "No, not yet. I'm just warning you." Michael barely got out of bed and walked out of the apartment. Amber was rubbing her hands together because she'd done it. Michael went first to the airport to pick up his car, because he'd left work in a hired car. Then he was in a hurry to get back before Ashley got home from work. He broke all the rules, but he made it to the apartment where they'd been living together for months. He got there a half hour before she got back, changed quickly, and showered. All those half hours he wondered if he had something with Amber, or if she'd cheated on him. "Hi," Ashley greeted cheerfully when he got home from work. "Hi, Ashley." Michael came out to greet her, gave her a kiss and a hug. "I missed you so much." "I missed you too. How's your mom?" Michael suddenly asked her. "Not good," Ashley said sadly. "She can't get over it, and I don't know what to do." "Ash, it's going to take time. Unfortunately, nothing else will help. I'm sure Susan will come through this ordeal with flying colors. We just have to wait a little longer." "I certainly hope so," Ashley replied. "She's spending a lot of time with Anthony. He's finishing 11th grade and getting ready for college. Her father hasn't called or written since he met Amber, and it's like he's lost his mind. As they say, a gray hair in his beard, a black eye in his rib." "What are your plans for tonight, my love?" Ashley asked playfully. "I just want to lie in front of the TV with my favorite girl," Michael replied. "I don't mind." Michael and Ashley spent the day together as they had planned. One day, Ashley went to her father's office to pick up his papers. Her mother had asked her to do so. Susan didn't want to see her husband again, so she asked her to go to Ashley's father's office. Ashley stopped by after work, and he wasn't there alone. Emily was sitting in her father's office. This meeting hadn't gone too badly, even though it had been unpleasant. "What can you do?" "Dad, Mom asked me to pick up my papers," Emily started the conversation. "Give them to me and I'll go. They're in the locker room now, in my briefcase." Jason went to the locker room, and Emily was alone with Amber in the office. She restrained herself from saying anything hurtful to Amber, but she wasn't holding back. "How did you like Michael in bed?" Amber asked ironically. "What's it to you?" Emily snapped at him. "Or does my father not suit you at all?" "No, I'm fine with him, but I like Michael better." "Stop it, Amber," Emily yelled at her. "By the way, Michael and I had a lot of fun recently," she said, as if she didn't mean it. "A couple days ago, Michael came over for a couple hours." "Didn't he tell you that?" "Oh, that's too bad. I thought you two had a very trusting relationship." "I don't believe you," Emily replied sharply. "And I have proof." Amber pulled out her phone to show Emily the pictures from earlier. "Well, I think we look great in bed together. Don't you think?" Emily flipped through the pictures, unable to take her eyes off them. While she was looking at them, her father came back with the papers. "Here you go," he said. Emily took the documents with trembling hands and left the office without saying anything. "What's wrong with her?" Dad asked Amber. "I don't know," she said. "I don't really care about your daughter, to be honest." Emily walked on, tears dripping from her eyes. She couldn't believe that her beloved Michael, her sweetheart, was cheating on her. The girl got into her car, let the tears flow, and then drove home. She needed to find out all the things that Michael was hiding from her. When she arrived, Michael was home. "Hi, sweetheart," he said. But Emily didn't say anything, just looked up at him with her big, blue, crying eyes. Is something wrong? Something with Mom? Michael asked her. No, Mom's fine. But our relationship is over, Emily replied. What are you talking about? Anne, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm saying you can go back to your Amber. You and I are no longer on the same path. How could you go out with me and get in bed with her? After saying that, Michael realized what he was talking about. Amber showed her the pictures she'd taken when he'd suddenly fallen asleep. I'll explain everything to you right now, he tried to justify himself. I don't want to hear any of your explanations. I've got it all figured out, Emily said harshly, though it hurt her to say such words to the man she loved. Now please take your things and go live at your place. Michael realized that Emily was very upset with him. He himself would have been offended too, so without further ado he gathered the necessary things and left the apartment. Emily was left alone. She cried all evening, sitting on the couch and remembering their relationship with Michael, how it had started, how much romance there had been in the beginning, how she had fallen in love with him as a freshman girl, how she had waited for him from flights. She remembered and cried even harder from the hopelessness that nothing could be taken back. In the evening, her mom came to visit her. Susan's visit was planned. She wanted to pick up the documents Emily had traveled to her father's office to get. Susan saw Emily crying. What's wrong, daughter? She asked. Now Susan had to comfort her daughter. Mom, it's Amber. Imagine today when I went to my father's house, she showed me pictures of her and Michael in bed. It was a few days ago, Emily said, sobbing. She felt sorry for herself. Are you sure it's not a montage? Susan asked. Just knowing Michael and his attitude toward you, I can't believe it. What did Michael say to that? And I did not listen to him, said the daughter. The picture was enough for me. But you can't do that. You always have to hear two points of view. This Amber's interest is clear to me. She wants Michael back any way she can. She even went through Jason, but she realized she didn't get her ex back. She's angry, and she's being mean. Mom, not making excuses for him, her daughter continued. I'm not making excuses. That Amber is an asshole, and she needs to be dealt with in her own way, Susan said firmly. She was belligerent. I realize now that Jason is just a fling for her. And I've been asking myself for days, why didn't I fight for my husband? And Emily, maybe you should have given that girl a big send-off. Mom, is that you? Emily didn't recognize her usually quiet and calm mother. How do you want to fight for Dad? I don't know yet. It's Anthony's birthday, so we need to get the whole family around the family table soon. Can you help me? And we'll invite my dad too, of course. Without Amber, of course. And we'll reminisce about all the good times we used to have together. Mom, I don't know what it'll look like, but I'll help, Emily nodded. Her resentment toward Michael had been put on the back burner for now. Emily spent all her free time preparing for her brother's birthday. Anthony was turning 18. He decided to celebrate his holiday twice, with friends in a cafe and with relatives at home. A couple days before the party, Anthony called his father. Dad, hi. I hope you didn't forget. It's my birthday. No, of course not, son. How could I forget? Jason replied sincerely. He had a wonderful relationship with his son. He didn't want to lose that relationship to a new love. Dad, we're going out with the family. I'll see you at home on June 25th. Will you come? Jason paused for a moment, which made Anthony want to get upset, and then he said, I will, Anthony, thank you. I just hope you'll come without her. You know, Mom, Emily, the in-laws, no one will be happy to see her. I'm not such a fool, his son realized. And Jason did keep his word and came to the party on time and without his Amber. Susan met her husband as if there had never been any marital discord in their relationship. She was affectionate, friendly with him. It was a family celebration that everyone enjoyed, and the birthday boy himself was happy, and a full family, and gifts that made him relatives. After the feast was nearing completion, Anthony with a glass suddenly rose from the table. "My relatives, I want to say a big thank you to all of you." Amber answered with a look of displeasure. "I fell asleep on the couch in the living room," Jason lied. "I'll come over and explain everything." Jason hadn't even had breakfast, leaving his former home. Susan had sent the pictures from the night before to Amber through Emily right after her husband left. Amber got those pictures and was just furious. As soon as Jason walked in, she gave him a huge scandal. He didn't confront her. He had a headache. He drank a cup of coffee with a hangover and drove to work. He didn't have the energy for a fight. He wasn't sure if he wanted to spend the rest of his life with Amber. Meanwhile, Emily's mom insisted that Emily have a serious talk with Michael. "You're the master of your own destiny," Susan told Emily. "And if you want to live the rest of your life with him, talk to him. Tell him the truth about Amber. Tell him that she is now your father." Michael, on the other hand, is still in the dark about who Jason and the mistress are. "We need to untangle this snake pit. And who's going to do it if not you and me?" Over breakfast, they began to spend many a night at my parents' house. "Michael calls you," Susan said. "Yes, every day. But I don't answer the phone. I think he betrayed me." "What if Amber set this whole thing up on purpose to break you two up? You have to meet him." Emily thought about her mom's suggestion for a long time. On the one hand, she really wanted to meet Michael. She missed him so much. But on the other hand, she immediately remembered those nasty pictures, and she didn't want anything else. But the meeting presented itself. Michael was waiting for Emily at her work. "We need to talk to you right away," he said. "This can't go on much longer. I have to explain everything to you." Without speaking, he took Emily's hand and led her to his car. She didn't resist. In her subconscious, she was looking forward to this meeting. "I owe you an explanation about these pictures," Michael began. "Yes, they were taken at her house. But I honestly don't remember when. One thing I do remember is that Amber and I were leaving work after a hard shift. She invited me to a coffee shop near work. Since you were working through the evening, I agreed to sit for an hour and have breakfast. And after I drank the tea, it was all a blur. I don't remember how I got into her car. I don't remember how I ended up in bed at her place. You may not believe me, but I remember everything very, very vaguely. It was like something had been put in my drink." "I believe you," Emily replied. "I believe that she's capable of it, because she's been trying to break us up for so long. And your biggest mistake right now is that you didn't tell her that Amber is your ex-girlfriend, and she wants you back so badly." Michael, hearing those words, turned sharply toward Emily. "How do you know that?" "Amber told me. You know that Amber and Daddy's mistress are the same person." He couldn't hide his surprise. "But how? So your dad is dating my ex-girlfriend?" "Yeah, that's right. But that's not all, Michael. Your ex-girlfriend Amber specifically started dating my dad Jason to get back at me. I went out with her, and she told me in no uncertain terms to dump you so she'd leave my dad alone. But I didn't, as you can see, because I love you. And that really pissed her off. So she decided to set me up with pictures of you. But that doesn't mean that nothing happened between you two." "I mean, it doesn't," Emily said. "Michael, I swear to you that nothing happened between me and Amber. At least not while I was in my memory." "Yes, I do," Emily said affectionately. "But why didn't you tell me earlier that you knew all about Amber?" "I didn't want to involve you in the family squabbles," she said. "Does your father know about Amber? Did she go out with him on purpose?" "No, no one's told him that yet. I want to tell him, but I just need him to hear it from Amber. He might not believe me." Then we'll build on that, Michael suggested. Let's get Amber out in the open. How do we do that? Emily asked again. You need to meet with her again, but record the entire conversation. I'll call her now and make an appointment, Michael suggested. Emily nodded. There was one number in her phone book. She found it, called it. It rang. Hello, Amber answered. Amber, this is Emily, Michael's current girlfriend. Remember when we met you at the coffee shop? Yeah, of course I remember. I'm gonna be your stepmom soon. Amber said into the phone. Amber, if your offer to dump Michael still stands, I'm in. But we need to meet again and talk things through. I need assurances, Emily said into the phone. I'll never give up on Michael, so it's on. Do you want to meet? Well, let's do it tonight at 8 p.m. at the same place, Amber suggested. Okay, Emily replied. Well, that's half done, Michael said as Emily hung up the phone after talking to Amber. Yeah, but I'm so scared to do all this, like I'm going to betray you tonight, she added. Don't be afraid of anything, Emily, I'll always be there for you. Trust me, Michael said and leaned in to kiss her. Emily did not resist for the first time in a long time. After that conversation, they drove to the apartment where they had lived together before their fight. Emily began to get ready to talk, as it was already 4 o'clock. I could take you to a coffee shop, Michael offered, but she declined. Emily was afraid that Amber would notice him and not believe that the whole situation was real. Finally, evening came, and Emily drove to Boston in her car. It wasn't a long drive, so she got there in 15 minutes. Amber was already sitting at a table in the cafe in all her war paint. You've had enough of Michael, haven't you? Amber asked. No, I love Michael, but I'm sorry about Mom. She's very depressed. She doesn't go out, she doesn't eat, she lied. I really hope that Daddy will come back to the family and everything will get better. Mom will revive at least a little. But I need to know that if I leave Michael, you'll leave Dad alone. Yeah, I promise you that. You leave my Michael and I'll leave your father. I don't love him. I don't love him. I only needed him to accomplish my goal, Amber said loudly. Emily had time to turn on the recorder on her phone and write it all down. Okay, Emily replied. I believe you, Michael is yours. With those words, Emily got up from the table without ordering anything. Everything she wanted to get, she had already gotten. She drove home and told Michael everything. Amber believed it. You have to play your part now, Emily said. She and Michael agreed that he was in the play and would play the role of the jilted and hurt boyfriend. They wanted to get Amber to dump her wounded father. Amber found out about Emily dumping Michael 2 days later. She caught up with him when they got off work together again. Michael, is it true? Did you and Emily break up? Yes, I did, he answered her. So now I have a chance again? Amber asked ambiguously. But everyone always has a chance, he answered ambiguously and walked on. Amber took his answer as a call to action and acted on it. She needed to tell Jason that they were breaking up. But first she needed to make sure Michael was in her good graces. Amber didn't want to be alone. One night, Amber called Michael. And he was at Emily's at the time, but Michael answered the phone. Hey, why don't you and I get together? I've missed you. He paused for a moment, then agreed. All right, let's go to a coffee shop near your house. Emily didn't like hearing that, but Michael reassured her. Emily, honey, but just be patient. As soon as we get Amber out in the open, we'll get you married. We have to get your father out of that stewardess clutches. Michael began packing for his meeting with Amber. Emily let him go with a heavy heart. What kind of girl would send her favorite guy to meet her ex-girlfriend? And a very attractive one at that. Michael arrived at the cafe. Amber arrived about 5 minutes after him, walked up to him and gave him a hug and a kiss on the cheek. "Michael, I missed you so much." "The test was a given," Amber said. "And I missed you a little too," Michael added a little later. "I was told you grieved after me. And not for long. Did you find a new boyfriend quickly?" She faltered, but she had to answer something. "Yeah, it was just a fling. I thought I told you about him. An older man just bored with his boring family life. Got attracted to me. I'm bored with him. We have very different interests." "Interested in you, or did you seduce him?" Michael clarified. "Michael, but let's not get into that. I'm way past that stage in my life. I'm going to tell him today that it's over between us, even though he's so attracted to me. But I want you and only you, and I'll talk about it 1,000 times. But I can't promise you anything serious. I've just been dumped, and I'm disappointed in every woman in the world right now. Trust me, I can prove to you that not all women are assholes. There are some decent ones. We'll see about that. First, you need to break up with your current boyfriend." "I'll do it tonight," Amber replied. Michael and Amber sat in the cafe for about an hour and a half talking about nothing. Michael was once again convinced that Amber wasn't right for him. She was too empty for him. Amber told Jason some unpleasant news that evening. "Jason, we have to break up," she began the conversation. The man had had a busy day today. He hadn't eaten most of the day. He hadn't waited for dinner from Amber either. "Amber, what the hell are you talking about?" he said. "I'm tired as a dog today. I'm hungry, but there's nothing at home. You were home all day yesterday. Why didn't you at least boil some borscht? And now you're telling me you're breaking up with me." "Jason, I'm not kidding. I want to break up with you." "I mean it," Amber added. "What's the reason?" the man asked sternly. "I don't love you. I don't feel like you're my man. So I'm asking you to get out of my apartment today and tomorrow." Jason, these words really hurt him. Had he, at almost 50, lived to be dumped by a young girl? "Didn't I give you enough money?" he asked. "It's fine," Amber replied. "But you're not my man. I'm sorry, I don't want to get into this anymore. I'm tired." Amber left the bedroom where the conversation was taking place. Jason immediately packed his suitcase and left the apartment. He had nowhere to go back to. He wasn't going straight to Susan's house. So he drove back to the hotel, frustrated and angry not so much at Amber as at himself for being such a fool. He'd thought she was the girl he was going to spend the rest of his life with. How had he been wrong? Naive. As soon as Jason left, Amber silently called Michael. "Michael, I want you to know that I broke up with my Jason. He just moved out of my apartment. You can come over." Amber was pleased. She couldn't believe that her plan had finally worked, and that she and Michael would be reunited very soon. But how wrong she was. Michael told Amber that he couldn't come to her place today because his mom was sick, and he needed to be there for her. Amber believed him, saying she was expecting him any time. And Michael, of course, was at Emily's the whole time. He's the one who told her what Amber said about breaking up with her dad. I wonder where he went now. Probably to a hotel, because he has nowhere else to go, Emily said. "Emily, listen. What if I called my dad and asked him to come over to my mom's house and tell him that we wanted to have dinner at my mom's house? What do you think?" Michael suggested. "That's not a bad idea. Call him." Michael agreed, and Emily immediately dialed her father. "Dad, hey, what are you doing right now? Do you have time right now? Why don't you come over to Mom's? We're planning on going over there too. We're going to sit around and drink tea from the samovar." "Emily, would it be okay for me to go to her house uninvited? I was mean to her, leaving her," Jason said. Dad, but Anthony and I are calling you, and I think she'll understand that we wanted to talk to Dad. All right, I'll be there in an hour, Jason replied. He had nothing to do at the hotel, so he agreed to spend time with the kids. Emily had time to tell her mother, and she and Michael went to Susan's house. Jason didn't lie, he came. It was awkward for him, but he managed with his agility, and they all sat down to drink tea from the samovar and play bingo. And after a while, Emily called Daddy to talk to her. Dad, I've got a rather complicated conversation to have with you about your Amber. I broke up with her today. She kicked me out of her apartment, said she didn't love me, Jason replied. I know how. I didn't turn on the recording on my phone. Yeah, I promise you. You leave my Michael, and I'm leaving your father. I don't love him. I only needed him to accomplish my goal, Amber said on the recording. Dad, Amber didn't love you at all. She only seduced you to get Michael away from me. She dated him before, but Michael dumped her when he met me. And I just found out all of this recently. You fell for her and hurt your mom, Emily said. Jason didn't say anything, but he didn't have much to say. In his defense, Michael had faked our breakup and told her that he was ready to go out with her again. She dumped you that same day, Dad. She's nothing. Emily finished and left the room. Jason remained standing alone in the room in silence. The next day evening, Emily walked Michael to work outside the airport. They met up with Amber. Emily purposely hugged Michael, kissing him. He reciprocated by kissing her too. Amber walked by them just then, and arriving at his ex-wife's house a year after the divorce, her husband froze upon learning of her fate. Amanda ran to the kitchen sink and splashed the coffee she had just drunk from a cup. Catherine is messing with me again, the woman thought with anger and despair. Stop hitting her with a belt, Amanda said out loud. She had woken up this morning in a good mood for once. It was Saturday, the whole weekend was ahead of her. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering lazily where the sun bunny had come from. She didn't immediately realize that it was a mirror lying on her bedside table, on which the rays were falling. How quiet is the house? Amanda wondered. It was 10 o'clock. John and Catherine should have been up by now. She planned to go to the mall and buy herself the pants she'd been eyeing on the store's website for a while, and pick up some clothes for her stepdaughter. Afterward, she and her husband could spend the day together. Amanda turned on her side and saw a note from her husband, gone on business. Urgently summoned. But John won't know when he'll be back, she thought. Why does he have to be the one to be pulled on weekends? If the boss himself had traveled like this, he would not have sent others. Her husband was the deputy head of a large construction firm. He often personally traveled to the sites, including on weekends. This dampened Amanda's mood a little, but she tried not to give in to sadness. The woman threw a robe over her nightgown and went down to the first floor. In the kitchen, she boiled water in an electric kettle, poured ground coffee into a cup, and poured boiling water over it. John wouldn't fail to remind me that there's a coffee machine in the house, Amanda smiled. But it was nice to be able to make coffee the old-fashioned way, like when I was a student. She covered the cup with a saucer and went to the bathroom to wash up. Amanda decided to take a shower and stood under the cool jets for about 10 minutes. Then she returned to the kitchen, looked out the window and smiled at the sunny summer day that promised only good things. But it was a sip of coffee that ruined everything. Apparently, while I was in the bathroom, Catherine came into the kitchen and put something in the drink. Amanda pondered. What kind of nasty stuff did she find? Was it black pepper or Brooklyn? She had no desire to taste the liquid a second time. She emptied the cup into the sink and sighed. Her mood was hopelessly ruined. For the 6 years that Amanda had lived with John, she had tried to find common ground with Catherine, his daughter from her first marriage, but she had failed. And it all started with their very first meeting, when a man brought his then not yet wife, but the woman he loved to introduce his 9-year-old daughter. "I had one mom, and I do not need a new one," said the girl, turned around and went into the room. "Will she get used to it?" John then divorced his hands. "It's been 3 years since Mary died. She misses her. You know," Amanda said. "A child is attached to her mother, and I'm not her aunt yet." "That's all right," her husband replied. But it didn't happen. When the woman offered to go with the girl to the children's park to spend time together and get acquainted, she seemed happy at first, but then throughout the walk was terribly cranky. "I'm dizzy. I feel sick. I don't want to feed them, and I don't want to eat myself. I don't want ice cream either." She refused even her favorite treat. John and Amanda were a little confused by her behavior, so they came home and tried to have dinner together. "My stomach hurts," Catherine said, and retreated to her room. So it went on. The girl perceived the new woman of the father exclusively in the bayonet. The man, on the contrary, only dreamed of meeting a new love after several years of lonely life after the death of his wife. "So smart and beautiful," he said of Amanda. And they met in a public restroom at the train station. "It's a shame to tell this story," the woman laughed later, recalling the situation. But she was not laughing then. In February, she came from her district center to the big city, where she found a job. The bus ride took her only 2 hours, so there were no sanitary stops. By the end of the trip, Amanda had a terrible urge to go to the bathroom. She jumped out of the vehicle and almost ran to the bus station building, but ran into a closed bathroom door. The restroom was closed for repairs, the note on it said. The nearest one was in the train station building. "What the hell is this?" the woman exclaimed in frustration. But there was no way out, and she hurried toward the train station, which was nearby. To get there, she had to pass through a small square, then go down into an underground passage, where people in a hurry were also pushing and literally stepping on each other's heels. God, couldn't the stations be connected somehow? Many people change from train to bus and vice versa, she muttered to herself. She was sweating in her down jacket from the fast walk. Strands of her brown hair were poking out from under her hat, and the suitcase she was dragging behind her looked like it was going to tear her arm off. Already barely tolerable, Amanda walked into the building and saw the huge lines. The women's restroom. And it's in a train station. However, the toilet is working. One of the people standing there was indignant. There were no people in front of the men's. Amanda, disregarding propriety, opened the door, saw a vacant stall and ran in without thinking. The woman slammed the door shut behind her with a jerk and finally went to the bathroom. "Oosh," she sighed in relief and smiled. That incredible feeling of relief. And then she saw that she hadn't closed the latch on the stall door. But it didn't matter, because luckily no one was trying to get in from the other side. The woman pushed the handle and pushed the door open to get out. But it wouldn't open. The handle didn't go all the way down. Amanda jerked on it some more, but to no avail. "What kind of bad luck is this?" she said aloud. "Madam?" came a voice from the next stall. A little surprised to hear that woman's voice. "But do you need help?" "Very much," Amanda ventured, embarrassed. "I think the lock's jammed. The knob won't budge." Just a second, she heard the sound of water running from the stall. "Okay, now my hands are blistered. I'll think of a way to get you out." Amanda heard the sound of water running from the faucet, then the sound of a zipper being stretched, and then some rustling. "Found it," the man said cheerfully. He started picking something in the lock, and after a minute he swung the door open. "And here I am, saving the princess imprisoned in the tower," he joked, holding a screwdriver. "Yeah," Amanda smiled. "A good princess upset with the press in front of the toilet." You're a fine lady. The man winked at her and she admired his brown eyes. Dark-haired, handsome man. Thank you, seriously, the woman said as she left the stall. And I'm sorry to barge into the men's room, but I'll tell you the whole epic with the search for the restroom. Can we go out of here, the man suggested, and continue our acquaintance over a cup of tea? My treat. I agree, Amanda said. Where can I get something to eat here? I don't know the city. Let's go to a pancake house right here at the station, the man suggested. My name is John, by the way. Amanda, the woman replied. I agree. The pancake house is good. Let's go before the next leg of the road. They went to the far end of the building, where a sign with the image of appetizing pancakes hung. Once inside, they placed their order. Amanda chose cheese pancakes and John chose chicken pancakes, plus 2 cups of black tea. We sat down at a table while we waited. Where are you from? The man started the conversation. On business or visiting? Is this your first time here? No, not for the first time. I've already come once for an interview. I'm from the district center. We don't have much work there. I found a vacancy here. I got hired, and I'm moving. Brevity is the sister of talent, John smiled. In a few sentences, they informed me of the events of the past few weeks. And what do you do? The woman asked. Where did you get a screwdriver all of a sudden? I work in a construction company. Constantly on the road, inspects objects. I accidentally picked up a screwdriver at the construction site after checking the fasteners. I found it on the train, called my colleagues and told them that I would bring it back the next time I visited them. It was a lucky coincidence for me, Amanda said. I don't know how long I would have had to sit there if it hadn't been for you. Oh, our order is ready. John got up and went and got it. Voila. He put the tray on the table. I'll pay for it. I insist, the woman said. You have a lot of money you need for rent. You'll need it now. Keep it, and I won't have to rent a hostel. That's why I got this job. It pays well and I have a place to live. After all, a hostel is cheaper than an apartment. I see, the man replied. But still, I'm not used to paying for women. So I insist on treating you. All right, Amanda accepted. Where do you live? I'm in the suburbs. I own my own house, built it a few years ago for my family. The woman blushed a little because she was starting to like this man. Are you married? Not anymore? No, he answered with restraint. My wife died, a transient cancer. My daughter is left behind. It's just the two of us. I'm sorry. My condolences, Amanda said sympathetically. How old is your daughter? She'll be 9 soon. She's my pride and joy. She's a good student. She plays sports. What kind of sports? I just got a job. State Athletics Training Center. She does skiing, plans to participate in races, but so far she's only enrolled in a sports school. Enrollment starts at age 9, but the coach was cooperative. Her daughter is a little younger, but they say she has abilities. Are you an athlete? What kind of sport do you do? I'm not. I take care of the athlete's health. I'm a nurse. Oh, how interesting. It's a bit of a catch-22, if you'll pardon the expression. I've been getting some injections lately. Don't think I'm sick. I just banged my elbow on a door jamb. Now it's a nerve problem. I can't feel my fingers. There's this nasty feeling that the whole nerve from elbow to hand is like a taut rope. Yeah, it's a minor injury, but it's a nasty one, Amanda agreed. Well, I do not want to go to the clinic for injections only to lose time in lines. So I was thinking of hiring a visiting nurse when I get back from my business trip. Maybe you'd be willing to help me out. Oh, I'd love a part-time job. But how would you get to the suburbs? There's a shuttle bus. If it's convenient for you, I'd rather invite you to our company's office. It's downtown. I'm just working all the time. My daughter is looked after by a governess and my mother-in-law. And me, staying late and at night, it would hardly be convenient for you to come to our house. It's a deal, Amanda said. I'll just check my schedule at the new place and contact you to discuss a convenient time. And for that we need to exchange phone numbers, the man smiled. Write mine down. That's how they began to communicate. And for 10 days, which lasted a course of prescribed injections, they became close. This was undoubtedly due to the daily contemplation of my naked heel, John joked. Yes, I appreciated your confidence, Amanda agreed. They began seeing each other on John's rare days off. His daughter Catherine was very unhappy with Amanda's appearance. Daddy, let's go out. I miss you so much. Why are you leaving home for that woman? The girl asked unhappily. Don't you love me anymore? Of course I do. I just want to take a little break from work and family matters and spend time with someone I like, the man said as affectionately as possible. You'll like her, you'll see. However, the girl took her father's new friend in stride. John and Amanda did not give up hope that the girl will eventually change her mind. But that didn't happen. After the first meeting and a trip to the park, they tried to go to the movies together, but Catherine again only frowned, showing that she was not interested in everything that was happening. You know what I suggest? John suddenly suggested to Amanda the next day. I think if we all live under the same roof, Catherine will realize that we're serious, and she'll soften up on you. I don't think it's time yet, Amanda shrugged. Maybe we should wait. Why wait until we're old? I want to live a full life with my family now, not put everything off for the future, the man insisted. The woman agreed, even though it seemed like a bad idea to her still only a few months after meeting him. She gave up her dorm room and moved in with John. Catherine took this fact with unexpected calm. A week later, Amanda realized why. Honey, my childhood friend Charlie is coming to visit us on Sunday, John said on Friday. He lives in another city and wants to show his fiancée his native New York. But he wants to meet my fiancée too. He hugged the woman and kissed her. And I'm already in bride status, Amanda smiled as she returned the kiss and also hugged the man. Of course I'm an honest man and I always marry the ones I love, John jokingly assured her. If that can be considered a proposal, then I'm in, Amanda said. That's just in case, the man said affectionately. We'll talk about it later. On Sunday, Amanda woke up early. She set the alarm clock for 8 because it was going to be an active day. She had to feed the guests breakfast after the road, then walk around the city, show the sights to Charlie's fiancée, and in the evening have dinner at a restaurant. Amanda really wanted to make a good impression on the people close to John. Now we'll have a quick coffee, she thought as she looked at the sleeping John. Then I'll do breakfast, and closer to their arrival I'll do my makeup and hair. With those thoughts, she stood up and reached for her glasses, which were on the nightstand. The woman had poor eyesight, so she wore contact lenses for work and other occasions when she left the house. At home, she wore glasses. Now Amanda was running her hand over the surface of the nightstand, trying to find the glasses, but it was as if they weren't there. That's odd, the woman thought. Maybe John moved them. But why? And I don't want to wake him up. She got up, bent over to the nightstand, trying to see what was on it. Then squatted down and ran her hands across the floor, deciding that the glasses might have fallen there. Amanda then looked for them everywhere: on the nightstand at John's side, on the dressing table where her makeup was, and on the windowsill. But the glass— Did you leave them here? He laughed. You've ruined your own mood this morning. I'm sure I didn't put them here. Why would you? How would I have gotten to the bedroom without them? Well, maybe you're tired. Took them off, left them on. The man shrugged. But Amanda was sure she couldn't have done such a thing. She had a bad suspicion in her head that she decided not to voice for the time being. In a couple of hours the guests were to arrive, and she didn't want to meet them with a scandal and without food, so she started cooking. The rest of the day went according to plan. John's friend and his fiancée arrived. Everyone liked each other and had a good time. Even Catherine, who had been taken for a walk around the city, seemed to be in a good mood. Maybe I'm imagining things for myself, thought Amanda, observing the girl's behavior. But after a few more days she became convinced of what she already suspected. The child began to constantly do small nasty things to her, then hide something, then in the yogurt spilled cereal, then throw shoes. Amanda just kept quietly tidying up. After one of the first incidents, she tried to inform John about his daughter's antics, but the response was not what she had hoped for. "John, do you really believe I would do such a thing?" For some reason, Amanda led the man into the living room where her underwear was strewn across the couch and chairs. "Why would Catherine do such a thing?" he said indignantly. "Because she doesn't like me. This isn't the first time she's done something like this. Remember the stories about the glasses? I don't know why you're snapping at her. It can all be explained by your forgetfulness. I forgot that I left my underwear all over the room, but you what? Let's drop the subject," the man said irritably. "I love both you and my daughter, so try not to swear." "Nice touch," washed his hands of it, Amanda thought resentfully. "Okay, I'm not going to take revenge on the child, I'll be patient." It went on like that for about a year, until the family moved into a new big house. John insisted. "I want to see a new family nest in a new place," he told Amanda. "I was living with a different family in the old house after all. It's time for us to start our own. You and I have been putting off getting married. But I think we should get married, and the house is officially in your name." "You're a little emotional when you talk about such important steps, aren't you?" The woman was a little surprised. "Perhaps I'm afraid to jinx my happiness," the man smiled. "It hurts when you enjoy life, and it is like envy to you as a footstool. Like my first wife died, Catherine had just grown up. I got the job I have now, and everything was going so well. And then it all fell apart." "We'll be fine," Amanda said softly. They chose a house together. Catherine was excited about the move. "I'll have a big room," the girl rejoiced. "Yes, your current one in our old house will seem like a cubbyhole compared to it," John replied. "Let's go with your taste." Amanda decided to improve the opportune moment, as long as the girl was in a good mood. "Let's you be the one to choose our common house. Look where you like best, what room, what yard, and so on." "Okay," Catherine agreed cheerfully. John silently took Amanda's hand and discreetly stroked her fingers in appreciation. They found the house quickly enough. The two-story building was located in a quiet neighborhood. There was a small courtyard in front of the front door, and a large area at the back of the building where they could plant flower beds or vegetables. Trees were already growing there: fruit, apples, pears, ornamental, and birch trees. The whole family literally fell in love with this place, and the deal to buy it was done. A couple weeks later they moved in and immediately put their old place on the market. "We'll use the money to go on a honeymoon," John said that evening at the first dinner in the new house. "And we're going to furnish the place to our liking. And we'll buy you a car, finally." "Thank you. I'm very happy right now," Amanda replied. "And I'm grateful that you've changed my life." "You changed mine," the man looked at her tenderly. Catherine, who was watching the scene, wrinkled her nose but said nothing. 6 months later, the couple played a wedding. There were few guests: John's father, his mother was dead, Amanda's parents, and a few of their closest friends. An unexpected guest was the man's former mother-in-law. He kept good relations with Anna Vitalievna and even decided to invite her to his new marriage. God grant you a long life together, she sincerely wished him, raising her glass. Amanda looked at her gratefully, happy that this woman who had lost her daughter had found the strength to accept the new woman who was taking care of her granddaughter. She didn't know then what her ex-mother-in-law's love for her child, the only family she had left, would mean. I'm not wearing that. Catherine threw her summer dress in Amanda's direction. They'll make fun of me at school. Years passed. Catherine turned 15 and adolescence was in full force. By this time she had won many competitions in cross-country skiing, received a sports category, and was enrolled in the School of Olympic Reserve. The school year was about to begin, and Amanda offered encouragement to update her closet. It was on the day Amanda was going to take her shopping that Catherine ruined her stepmother's morning coffee. I'm an athlete, not a party girl, irritatedly said the girl now, running from one outlet to another. But you're a girl. You have to look like one, Amanda answered her calmly. You can't always wear tracksuits. But I do play sports, Catherine countered. But not all of you. You have to wear something to class, to lectures. I'll see what other people wear, then I'll decide. But thank you for your concern. Catherine finished the conversation. Amanda sighed and followed the stubborn girl to the sportswear store. Buy new tracksuits. It was impossible to understand her stepdaughter. Sometimes she seemed to be good to her stepmother, and sometimes Amanda found that she continued to sneak around. It usually happened after some sort of spat. I wonder what she'll come up with tomorrow, the woman thought curiously, waiting for the girl from the fitting room. Will she put something in my coffee again? Will he delete my files in my laptop or throw out something worse? But surprisingly, there were no consequences. Despite the disagreement at the store, the girl hadn't gotten back at her stepmother in any way. Amanda had really hoped that the simmering conflict would die down on its own when Catherine entered college and moved into the dormitory. But John insisted that his daughter stay at home. I know what goes on in these dormitories, he said. I don't want you wasting your time hanging out instead of studying. At that moment, Catherine and Amanda finally shared something in common: disappointed facial expressions. Both had hoped to see each other less often. Oh well, I'll wait for her to get married, Amanda thought with bitter irony. The everyday life dragged on. Everything went on as usual. John often went on business trips. Amanda worked as a nurse. Catherine was at college until late in the evening. A phone call interrupted the routine, and in December, disaster struck. We can't find your husband, Amanda got a call from the college that afternoon. Your little girl has been seriously injured. She's in the emergency room. Amanda didn't remember taking off work and calling a cab. Despite everything, she loved this girl, even though she didn't reciprocate. She ran to the emergency room and learned that Catherine had a displaced tibia fracture and was being prepped for emergency surgery. Do you need parental consent? The woman asked the young doctor who admitted Catherine. Her father is now in another city, and I did not adopt her. Can I give permission? It's okay, the doctor replied. At 15, she can consent to surgery on her own. Okay, Amanda said, confused. So it's bad. What's the prognosis? I'm not an attending physician. I just examined her and referred her for surgery, the man replied. Talk to a specialist later. All I can say is that this type of fracture is complex, and rehabilitation after it is very long. But she will not be disabled. She's an athlete. Let's hope not, shrugged the doctor. Understand, everything will be clear at the operation. Depends on how well the specialists will be able to assemble the bone. I really can neither scare nor reassure you. It's fine now. I'm sorry, Amanda said. Wait until the surgery is over. The doctors will come out and tell you everything at once. The woman went to wait in the lobby of the clinic. She tried to call John, but he didn't pick up. Maybe he's in negotiations, Amanda thought. Even though it had been hours already, and no one still couldn't reach him. How worried is he going to be, poor guy? I guess I can't understand these parental feelings. After all, it's not like I don't have kids. Her thoughts jumped to the unpleasant history of their attempts to have a child. Amanda and John had thought about it a couple of years ago, when their life together had settled down. They were in their early 30s, and the chances of having a baby were quite high. However, Amanda was not able to get pregnant. They had undergone numerous tests that showed the couple to be perfectly healthy. There are such cases, explained the fertility doctor. There may be something going on due to nervous tension, and the body doesn't want to get pregnant in a stressful situation of the stressors. Amanda could only remember her relationship with her stepdaughter. Otherwise, she and John had a calm, measured life without upheaval. And it appeared that, ironically, she was unable to have a child because of the presence of another child in her life. Her nervous thoughts were interrupted by a phone call. It was John. "Oh my God," he said, horrified to hear what had happened. "I'm on my way, I'll be there tomorrow. Take care of everything, please." The girl was operated on immediately. The doctor came out to Amanda and said he was satisfied with the result. Catherine was coming out of anesthesia, and the woman was told that she could visit her tomorrow. Amanda went home. It's unaccustomedly quiet here, she thought as she entered the house. Amanda went to the bedroom, and from her worry she powerlessly sank down on the bed and fell asleep. It was as if everything went well from there. Catherine was discharged, being warned that she would have a cast for at least 2 months. The girl was very upset because she missed classes and was basically very limited in movement. She sat at home, read a lot, and watched movies. "You look so downcast," Amanda said, looking at her daughter. "What do you want?" "She's very worried about not being able to play her favorite sport," John replied. "It's hard for her at her age to put up with so much. It's all about getting it right," John sighed. "I'm sure she'll catch up with her classmates." But Catherine was not so lucky. When it came to the point to remove the cast and begin the long rehabilitation process, it turned out that the bones are not properly healed, and there were symptoms of osteoporosis. The bone had become less dense and less strong, the doctor explained to John and Amanda. This can lead to new fractures, even from minor stresses. "What should we do?" John asked. His voice trembled. "Treat it. First, we have another operation as soon as possible, and then take special drugs to stimulate bone formation. The endocrinologist prescribes them." "That's good. Who do you recommend?" clarified the worried father. "I would recommend treatment abroad. There are good clinics in Germany, but it will be expensive, you understand." "We'll find the money," John replied calmly. They drove home depressed in Amanda's car. The woman was driving. John and Catherine sat in the back. The girl pressed herself against her father and cried quietly, realizing that it will not soon be able to take up skiing and generally return to the usual way of life. "I'll have to leave the school," finally raised her voice Catherine. "Let's not be in a hurry," John said soothingly, and held his daughter to himself. "Take a sabbatical for a year." Amanda was silent the whole way there and back. The woman sympathized with Catherine, but she had some very important news of her own that she didn't want to tell her family yet. What good fortune. What bad timing, Amanda thought in the bathroom this morning when she saw the 2 long-awaited stripes on the pregnancy test. No, the good news will have to wait after all. I have to deal with Catherine first. The woman decided and put the test back in the package, and then hid it in the pocket of her robe. And now, on her way home, she tried her best to hide her joy at finally becoming a mother. No matter how hard she tried to shift her focus to her stepdaughter's health, Amanda couldn't escape the thoughts of her future child. Boy or girl, she pondered. And how will they get along with Catherine? Won't she be jealous if she starts doing nasty things like she did to me? This is where Amanda started to get worried, And that's when she intercepted her stepdaughter's tense gaze in the rearview mirror. Amanda flinched. She was staring at her with unconcealed anger. The woman averted her eyes and gripped the steering wheel. She felt very scared. She had a premonition of something very bad. "I found a suitable clinic for Catherine in Germany," John said a few days later. "Now I will collect the money. The amount, of course, astronomical, more than 1,000,000 rubles. And this is only for the operation. And also rehabilitation." "What's all this money for?" Amanda was horrified. "It includes not only surgery, but also tests, a consultation with an orthopedic traumatologist before the operation, and examination after the surgery. 3 days in the hospital, 6 days in a hotel. And transportation pickup from the airport, take to the hospital, and then to the hotel." I see, the woman sighed. "At least afterward, when Catherine comes home, I'll be able to take care of her myself. I'm a nurse, so at least we'll save a little money." "Why don't you want money from me?" Catherine suddenly said rudely. "There's plenty to spend it on." Amanda was taken aback. "I just wanted to know what the money would be used for. So it's all inclusive, except for the food. That means there's money for that too." "You're right," said John. "I plan to borrow the whole amount from the director of my company and pay off part of her salary." John served the whole amount and made an appointment. The director agreed to give the money in a large advance, and John received it a few days later. "I've never seen so much money," Amanda said as they spread the bills out on their bed to do an exact count. "It should be enough for everything, both surgery and rehab." "But I'll give you more if you need it," John said. "Children are sacred." "How do I tell him I'm pregnant?" Amanda thought after he said that. "Maybe I should wait until Catherine's surgery and then tell him the good news." They put the money in the nightstand in the bedroom and went to bed. In the morning, everyone went to work, leaving Catherine to pack. For the hospitalization, her grandmother Anne came over to help. All day Amanda was distracted. She barely worked her shift. Tired, she got in her car and drove home. The next day she felt worse, dizzy and nauseous. Could it be toxemia? Amanda thought. It's a little early. Maybe it's the age thing. I wouldn't drive today, in case she felt sick, so I'd call a cab. At work, she felt bad. What are you talking about? Amanda asked, puzzled. How could you steal money from a sick child? Anne turned to her. It's a good thing I thought to look in your car. And we found the whole amount there, added Catherine, who was sitting next to her grandmother on the couch. John looked at his wife in silence with contempt. She did not know what to say, so absurd were these accusations. She hid them in the trunk under a bag with some tools, said Anne. I didn't expect that. You've lived together for so many years, and you? Why did you skip work today? Catherine added. We're thinking where to hide the money? Were you looking for a safety deposit box? Or did you want to give it to your lover, but you didn't have time to take it out? What is this nonsense? Amanda finally found her voice. And how do you know I wasn't at work? I called you to see if you had an extra backpack. I had a doctor's appointment. You could have called my cell phone. Why would you call my cell phone at work? Catherine said. I don't understand what you're thinking about money. You didn't plan any of this? That wasn't the plan. Anne interrupted her. Maybe you planted it on me, suddenly realizing, turned to Catherine. Amanda, nice setup. Very skillfully thought out this time. Slipping money into my car. It's not like putting pepper in my coffee. You're an asshole, not a human being. The woman suddenly burst into tears. All these years we've been living, and you're ruining my life. So John roared. Shut up, and he turned on his wife. How dare you yell at my child, and a sick one at that? And how dare she accuse your wife of incomprehensible things? Amanda parried. Do you have some kind of double standard? "Fuck you," suddenly bellowed her husband. "You can't touch my daughter, you infertile fool. I have you for her." Wanted to ruin her life. Disrupt the operation urgently. Are you out of your mind? I would never in my life have started, was Amanda, but no one was listening to her. "Get out," yelled John. "I don't want to see you. I'll file for divorce as soon as I get back from Germany. And I'll be damned if I leave you any property." 2 months later, Amanda sat in her dorm room and calculated how much money she had left before her paycheck. The amount was not encouraging. She had to keep buying vitamin supplements. Pregnancy was harder on her than expected. "And I don't have any savings," Amanda pondered. "And nothing to sell. John took everything from me. He signed the house over to himself in the divorce with his lefty lawyers in the car, and even the gifts he gave me. Over the years, all my inexpensive jewelry." Only her parents knew about her pregnancy. She didn't have time to tell John at first, and afterward she didn't want to. She was too hurt by the way her ex-husband had treated her. "Maybe you should tell him," after all, Margaret's mother exhorted the woman. "I don't want to." The daughter shook her head negatively. "My child doesn't need a father who threw his mother out on the street after 6 years of living together without much of a trial. Take my grandmother on Dad's side of the family. She split up with her husband because of him, too. He cheated on her. So she went to her house in a remote village and did not let him on the doorstep when he came to repent. And after that he lived as a hermit. So she took offense at the whole world." "I remember that story, Mom. I only visited her a couple of times when I was a child, and after that she refused to accept everyone and got into herbs. She treated the locals, but for some reason she didn't want to know her family. Strange, isn't it? And her house is still intact. But no one goes there. When they buried her, they forgot the road. It's probably overgrown. But I'm not going to be a hermit," Amanda smiled. "I have no grudges against the whole world, just one person." It was time for the first ultrasound. A few months ago, Amanda never imagined that she would have to go in for a checkup alone, without her loving husband, on such an important day. Her mom was back in town. She couldn't stay with her daughter. Amanda's father had had a stroke and the man needed to be cared for. "So the baby is fine," the doctor who performed the ultrasound told Amanda. "Do you want to know who it's going to be?" "Yes." Amanda opened her eyes in anticipation and smiled contentedly when she heard the answer. It had been a year. John had been working on his daughter's rehabilitation the whole time. The operation in Germany was successful, but the cast was not removed for a long time, and it took a long time to develop the leg after all this. However, despite all efforts, Mary limped, and her character from this did not improve at all. "Why did fate do this to me?" said the girl irritably to her father. "I wanted to devote my life to sports. And what in the end? What am I to do now? To live and recover in time is how long has it been? Do you believe I'll miraculously heal and start skiing again?" "Look, but you can be more than just an athlete or a coach. There are different training programs, including for people with disabilities." "What do you think I am? Handicapped?" Catherine exclaimed with tears of anger in her eyes. "No, that's not what I meant to say." John tried to calm his daughter. But she did not listen and went to her room. These conversations were happening more and more often, and they were devastating to the man. "I was always on her side," he thought bitterly. "So many years did not marry, took care of her feelings. Kicked the traitor Amanda out when I found out she was dirty. Now I live alone. Why doesn't she appreciate that?" The young man was totally dependent on his daughter's whims. He reluctantly went home from work, because there he was waiting for a frowning-faced Catherine and her eternal dissatisfaction with complaints. He began to spend even more time on business trips, and in one of them met a nice woman, Amber. She worked as a waitress at the restaurant where he and his partners went for dinner. "Where do you always go at night?" After a month, My daughter suspected something was wrong. I go out with my friends. Not all I have to babysit you. John cut him off. In fact, he did not want to tell his daughter about his personal life, remembering her attitude to Amanda. The man offered Amber to move to his town, rented her an apartment the income allowed, and visited her several times a week. Amber accepted the status of secret lover. I don't care, she told her friend in a telephone conversation. Like a cheese and butter I roll around. I don't have to work. I make eyes at him. I chase his legs, and he, sweetheart, is ready for anything. She laughed. You're lucky, she sighed enviously. I would have to find someone to provide me with everything. Maybe we'll get married. Amber continued to brag. I've been hinting at him, working him up, but he's afraid to introduce me to his daughter. According to his stories, she's a very spoiled, capricious girl. But good luck to you, wished her friend. At least call me to the wedding. I'm sure you'll get what you want. But the plans of calculating Amber was not destined to materialize. However, it was only her own fault she missed socializing. Sitting alone in her apartment 24 hours a day, she got herself a lover, 20-year-old Michael from the neighboring entrance, who was constantly looking at the poor woman, who went shopping at the grocery store in a provocative short dress and stilettos. One day she lured him with her finger into the entryway, and he obediently followed her. You are my goddess, whispered the enchanted young man, lying in bed after his lovemaking. His admiration pleased her ego but let her guard down. One day she was kissing a young lover in the street near her driveway and didn't notice John pulling up in his car. He got out of the car and stood silently watching Amber and Michael embrace. Young man, he finally said snidely. Let me help you pack up your beauty's things and take them outside. She's moving in with you now, I suppose. Amber and Michael looked away from each other, stunned. The woman realized it was pointless to make excuses in such a situation and, sighing, went to her entryway to say goodbye to her apartment and to pack up her belongings. What a fool, she thought frustratedly. Now to return home with nothing to eat. Emberochka, really, move in with me, Michael said, catching up with her on the stairs. Are you stupid? She answered rudely, opening the apartment. Milk on your lips is not dried up, and you're already climbing up skirts? Get out. And slammed the door in his face. The confused guy with the eyes of a hurt kitten remained standing in the stairwell, but Amber didn't care about him anymore. God, who have I messed with? John pondered as he walked home. It's from loneliness, apparently not recognizing a woman of easy virtue, he began to feel very sorry for himself. It felt like he was paying the price. But by an effort of will the man restrained himself. At home he was waiting for the second part of the play, which could be called a comedy of situations. But it was not a comedy, but a tragedy. Catherine met her father with hysterics. I want to go to the sea, she declared, suddenly entering the living room, where the man sat down to rest from emotion. Catherine is tired of sitting at home and going to doctors. Daughter, it is necessary to heal. Something cranky. We'll go on vacation in a couple of months, I promise. Why not now? I'm tired. I want to swim. It's good for my leg. Let's go this week, she demanded of her father. Stop it, John shouted at her, his nerves finally giving out. First the mistress surprised him, then the daughter made demands. Why are you yelling at me? Why are you acting like a little kid? You're an adult, but you're only doing things. You're sassing me. What do you want? You don't like me. Maybe your new baby will be better. Is that what you're counting on? What baby, for God's sake? John waved her away. I'm not having any kids. If you found out about Amber somehow, don't worry, I broke up with her. Amber? Who the hell is Amber? I meant your Amanda. Did she have an abortion or something? I don't get it, John frowned. Why are you bringing her up? And what does that have to do with the abortion? But she should have been in labor by now. Didn't you even ask if you had a son or a daughter? She was pregnant when she left here. It finally came to John. I didn't know about it. How did you know? I found a 2-stripe pregnancy test in her robe. She obviously didn't put someone else's in there. Oh my God. So you really did go through her stuff all the time, just like she said. And I was a fool not to believe it. Yes, Catherine smirked. I got rid of her beautifully, didn't I? Our plan was a success. John silently looked at the monster, in which he could not recognize his daughter, and with horror waited for the continuation, although he was beginning to guess what she means. Grandma Ann helped me, the girl said. As soon as I found this test, I realized that you would soon abandon me. New wife, new offspring. But her tone became dismissive when it came to the baby. So I got my grandmother to help me plant money for my stepmother. I could barely walk on my own. How could you? John exhaled in shock. Grandmother broke quickly, boasted Catherine. She has no one but me. She was already worried about me. And then I frightened her that you'll start a new family. You'd dump me, an invalid, on her. So it's about money. It turns out, looked at Catherine father. In general, yes, she shamelessly confirmed. The man got up, left the living room and went to the second floor, not seeing the road. He came to his senses when he hit his toes on the banister, as if in a fog. Climbing the stairs, he went into his office, where there was a small bar, took out a bottle of cognac, a glass, sat down at his desk, and began to get methodically drunk. After a couple hours staggering, he went downstairs and hailed a cab. Get me Amanda, who recently moved in, he demanded of the janitor at the hostel, where his wife had lived before their marriage. Amanda who? Go sleep it off, she scolded. I'll call the police. First Amanda. She was supposed to move in here a year ago. I know exactly who you're talking about. She moved out before she gave birth. Bought herself a house. A house? John was surprised. Where did she get the money? You mean her ex-husband? The one who kicked her pregnant and penniless out of the house. She earned the money for the house. It was a very interesting story when she was 6 months pregnant. Amanda had lost her spirit. She went to work, returned to her dormitory in utter despondency. Didn't know where she was going to get the money to support her child. Her parents could not help. The father needed expensive medicines and physiotherapy. The woman didn't even think about returning to her hometown and creating additional expenses for her mother, for herself and the child. Can't do this anymore, she thought as Emily lay in her one room on an uncomfortably narrow bunk that made her back ache. I need a distraction, somewhere to get out so I don't spend a lot of money. And then the conversation with her mother about her reclusive grandmother popped into her head. Amanda was revitalized. It would be possible to go to that abandoned cottage, to walk away from the noisy city, to breathe the forest air. And in a few minutes she was on her way. The cabin was only 30 kilometers from the city. You could get to the nearest village by electric train, and then you had to walk a couple of kilometers through the forest. How overgrown is everything here, marveled the woman when she reached the place. And here my grandmother had medicinal herbs and a vegetable garden. She stepped inside the cabin. The shriveled door was unlocked. Inside was old furniture covered in dust. Amanda found a stool, laid a cellophane bag she had with her on it, and sat down to rest from the road. She was in a strange mood. How nice to go back to childhood for a little while, she thought. And how sad that I'm as lonely as my grandmother was. And then the woman's gaze fell on a puffy Soviet-era stationery book lying on a table nearby. She reached out, picked it up, and dust kicked up into the air. The recipes were written in the book in chemical pencil. I didn't know Grandma was into self-medication, Amanda marveled. She opened the book, and there were recipes for healing ointments and other remedies her grandmother had made. There were a good 100 of them, if not more. Leafing through the book, Amanda noticed a section called back pain. Interesting to try this, she thought. My back is hurting more and more every month. Late in the pregnancy, it's scary to think what will happen. I'll take this tome with me. At home, she prepared the ointment, having bought at the pharmacy those herbs that were in the recipe, and Vaseline as a base, tried to apply it to herself. And oh miracle! The next morning he showered, shaved, drank a few cups of coffee, and drove his car to his ex-wife's house. The closer he got to her house, the more nervous he became. What will she say to me? How will she take it? He pondered. If I were her, I'd probably spit in her face. He drove up to the right house, hidden by a tall green fence, got out of the car and knocked on the gate. After a while it swung open. Amanda looked up at him with the baby in her arms. John stood silent, unable to find the right words. Come in, the woman said, moving aside and letting him pass. I just found out about everything. About the pregnancy, John pronounced, waiting for her to close the wicket. She looked at him carefully and nodded toward the open door. Come inside. I'll give you tea. I had no desire to inform you after everything that's happened, Amanda said calmly as she walked into the kitchen. Sit down, I'll put the kettle on now. And how is Catherine? Has she recovered? Not so good. 1 minute she's better, the next she's worse. Moody. Behavior is atrocious because of it. I'm not surprised, Amanda smiled, rocking the baby, who flinched at the sound of the kettle boiling. She wasn't an angel in the good times either. But whatever she thought, I treated her well and worried about her health. And she did such an ungrateful thing. She confessed everything, John said. Said it was her and Anne who set you up. What was the point of that? Why so jealous of me and the baby? Amanda sighed. And that's him. You said baby, so is it a boy? A boy, the woman blurted out in a smile as she looked at her son. We're 4 months old soon. What did you name him? John held out his hands and Amanda gently handed the baby to him. Stepan Jonovich. Sound good? Tears came to the man's eyes. Sweetheart, can you forgive me? I was not myself because of my daughter's illness. I snapped at you. I believed everything. You know, with the baby coming, I've begun to understand you better, Amanda replied. I don't know how I would have coped if Stepashka had gotten sick. How would I have behaved? So you can forgive me, John repeated. The most important question for him right now. Amanda answered it. We'll see. 6 months later, they celebrated a birthday. The baby was a year old. There were few guests, only the closest ones. Amanda's parents came. Her father got better and was able to endure the road. Also present were John's father and Catherine and her grandmother. I can't help but admire your kindness, John whispered to Amanda, taking a moment when they were alone in the kitchen preparing to bring out the desserts for the holiday table. You've forgiven Catherine and her grandmother. I think they've realized what they've done and are truly remorseful. What's the big deal? Holding a grudge for the rest of your life? Especially now. After all, it was lucky to have such a sister as Catherine became. John smiled. Yes, she really cares for him. Who would have thought it? She's forgotten about sports. She wants to be a teacher. God grant us all wishes, said Amanda. I already have all my wishes, the man replied. I have a real strong family. All my loved ones are with me every day. They hugged each other and looked into the living room, where at the same table were gathered people who had made mistakes and were eager to correct them, who were angry with despair but found the strength to overcome themselves and rejoice in the changes, who fought with illnesses but inspired others with their kindness, and of course who knew how to forgive their loved ones. After all, family is the most important, the most valuable thing in our lives.